Not hearing any comms.
Morning, Robbie. How you doing?
Morning, very well, thanks. Yourself? Lekker.
Lekker.
Cool brew.
You lose your eyeball there. You will. You will have lost the phone.
Okay, that's gonna be handy. Or are you happy with that position? Because then I'm gonna stick it over here.
Yeah. Just make sure I can turn.
Space there. How's that?
Yeah.
Okay, it just needs to be plugged in. He's not here. He's still being mic'd up. Okay.
So,
On the clock now.
Arduous, the studio cameras are not framed correctly as well.
why not? We've been correct the whole time.
Yes, that looks better on the wide, thank you.
Dramatic images of stage 1 of the Absa Cape Epic in 2019. Hello, welcome to stage 2 of this fantastic race as we move to Oak Valley in the Elgin-Crossbow region as the riders make their way from Hermanus to Oak Valley. 90 kilometres today, another tough stage of 2,250 metres of climbing after yesterday's really hard stage, 112 kilometres. The longest day yesterday, 9 hours and 54 minutes, nearly 5 hours longer than the stage winners. That's how tough this race is. But almost everyone has survived to make it through to stage number 2, including Neil Gardner and Robbie McEwen. Made the journey over here. Tough ride.
Well, it was a tough drive, you know. I used a little bit of petrol, but would have been really nice to get a ride in this morning. But I'm looking forward to watching how this stage plays out, particularly after yesterday's really tough stage 1. There's going to be a lot of tired legs out there today.
A lot of tired legs and some scores to settle, perhaps, Neil, after the fireworks on the finish line yesterday.
Well, we had some Latin temperament on the finish yesterday, and it was great to see that this is an absolute all-out race, and there's no friends here. No one's making buddies. It's all about the stakes, and the stakes are high.
Well, it is a great story, this whole Absa Cape Epic. Every single day, every kilometre has a chapter to add to what is going to be a big book to open and read at the end of it at Val de Vie on Sunday, the grand finale. But that's a long way down the line, of course, because we are here in Oak Valley for the next couple of nights as the race makes this its base. So we're going to be focusing on the big races, of course. Scots Ram MTB, they're ahead of the race by 3 minutes and 33 over Cannondale Factory Racing in the men's race. In the women's race, it's Investec Songo Specialized, Annika Langville and Anna van der Breggen, who have a comfortable over 6-minute lead on Crossbow Racing. So that race also unfolding as they make their way towards Oak Valley. Further down the field, of course, hundreds and hundreds of amateurs making their way through this incredible journey. So let's have a little look at one of those amateur teams, and it is KT18 and the two men, Stuart Cox and his partner, Jaco Albert van Gas. Extraordinary story, that's certainly from Stuart Coxford and Jaco Albert Vergas, and strength to them as they embark on this wonderful Absa Cape epic journey. These guys are at the sharp end in the yellow jersey, Schuurter and Forster of Scots mountain bike racing after a second stage win yesterday, 3:33 ahead of Cannondale Factory Racing's Avancini and Fumich, with Kulharvi and Gaze, who recovered after all manner of problems on yesterday's stage, to take third place on the GC. Hathley and Beers, the Specialized Foundation NAD team, 10 minutes and 18 seconds down. They are the leading African team in the Absa Africa jersey. And Tobungunya and Bobo, now the new leaders from BMT, Fairtree and Stellenbosch, they are the leaders of the Xaro category. In the orange jersey, the women's leaders, Anneke Langwell and Anna van der Breggen, establishing their credentials as contenders to take this title for a fifth time for Langwell and a first time for van der Breggen if they get to Val de Vie in this situation. Luthi and Worstovska of Crossbow Racing just under 6 minutes adrift. So this is on the menu today. Hermanus High School, they departed this morning, and up through that Hibbel and Arda Valley they went, snaking around the mountains. The first water point, the wonderful Land Rover technical terrain, which is known as the Machine. We may well see them flying down there. Some fantastic images. They make their way to Botrefir and up into the Hoek Valley and the beautiful, cool, lush climate of the Elgin Grabo Valley and Oak Valley, which is our race village for the 8th time since 2008 in the Absa Cape Epic. It's a wonderful place and some great trails around this part of the Western Cape, which I'm sure you will get a chance to ride over the next few days. But let's get to the racing here, Robbie. And as we've alluded to, there's a bit of sparks on the finish line yesterday. Avancini and he had a go at Schuurter. What's going on there? How do you read that dynamic?
Well, we saw during the race yesterday where those two teams, Scott SRAM and the Cannondale boys, were off the front together. And you could see that there was only one team forcing the pace. That was Scott SRAM. And Nino, he didn't like the fact that the Cannondale boys decided, well, we're just going to sit behind and get a free ride along the farm track. And that's when the dynamic started to play out, where we saw then Lars go up the road and he took Fumich with him. And Avancini and Schuurter had a sort of a stalemate, a little Mexican standoff behind, and we saw their words exchanged, and we're all looking forward to the finish when we could hear what had gone on. And Avancini, he just let loose at the finish and said, you know, he was really, that Schuurter was really chirping at him and really having a go at him, and he was not too pleased at all, to put it very lightly. I have heard since last night, though, they've shaken hands, they've spoken about it, they said, right, bury the hatchet, but I think they didn't bury it very deep.
But from a racer's perspective, I mean, you've been in that heat of the battle many times, and you know, it's not often that it gets brought off the bike and into our environment like that, is it?
No, it's not. Often athletes are very guarded about what they say to the media at the finish, and Avancini, he was very heated, he was extremely fatigued and annoyed, and he let it out. It was great to hear it and give us an insight into the race and really what happens in those situations. And racing is not just physical, it's also psychological, and Nino really understands that, and so that's one of his weapons. He is the strongest. He can ride guys out of the wheel whenever he feels like it seems, but he's using everything at his disposal, and that psychological game is a big part of it too. And Avancini, he just walks straight into the trap, Neil.
Well, let's see what transpires today. We've been watching a bit of the earlier racing before we're going live, before you've been live today, and it seems like they are having a bit of a go at each other, but not with their mouths, but with their legs. We've seen them both right up front. In fact, right up in front of the pack. They've left the others behind, and perhaps maybe they're having maybe a bit of a makeup discussion about yesterday, or maybe they're just testing each other out and just trying to see exactly who's the stronger rider today.
Well, one is the cross-country world champion and the Olympic champion, Nino Schuurter. The other is the marathon world champion, Henrik Avancini. And he, in fact, finished 4th in the World Cup standings last year. So let's have a little listen to what transpired when they got across the finish line yesterday. First off, it's Henrik Avancini talking to Laura.
But my motivation is quite high, for the week. And to be honest, would be nice to have some microphones on the bikes, and then people could see who is the real Nino. But anyway, I'm gonna show him little by little, and it's a long week. And I'm really confident, on this kind of race. I really trust my legs. I really trust my partner. I trust my team. And we're gonna make this race nice. I think this is our main goal. And as I said, nobody scares me on this race.
As we have a microphone now, what do you mean with real Nino?
I mean, he just gives shit to every rider on the peloton. Nobody knows this side of him, and I really hate that. And I'm a guy that worked quite hard to get on this level, to get on this point of a professional career. And he's always like giving shit to every rider that scares him or is just around him. He likes to be the big boss, and he is the best rider. But honestly, as I said, on this race, he's not the captain of the boat, and I'm not too scared of him. And it's a long week, and I hope that we're gonna have like a nice fight on the next few days. And little by little, he's gonna show his face as always.
Yeah, it was a fast start. It was quite hectic at the beginning. It was a bit difficult to get in position, but then mid-race through it got a bit harder, and we twice got a gap on the climbs. We've probably been the strongest team at the climbs, and then we got away with Cannondale, and we also were able to drop them, so it was a pretty cool race, yeah.
Enrique Avancini, he was not very happy here at the finish. Did you have some stress inside the favorite group?
Yeah, they didn't want to lead with us, and so we had no other choice. That's we don't take someone with us, especially if they are second in their overall. They have also to work, and if they think they can just ride with, then they have to search another team for that.
So that's what happened on the finish line yesterday. Added a real bit of spice to the day's proceedings, didn't it? Advantage Schurter?
Absolutely. Not just in the race because they rode away and they put minutes into the opposition, but psychologically then you saw how irritated and agitated Avancini was. And then the answer from Nino Schurter was really measured, controlled, a smile on his face. It really doesn't faze him one little bit.
Cold as ice. And Nino is Switzerland. He is from Switzerland, so a little bit more neutral than Enrique Avancini, but he knows who's boss, and he's got the World Championship stripes to prove it.
Yeah, right. It's like he's just answered with, well, I've got him right where I want him, and that's the reaction I wanted. I'm under his skin.
Yeah, I've got a little scratch there, and look, it's starting to irritate him. It's inflaming, and how that'll impact today's racing and for the rest of the week, well, it's one of those lovely little undercurrents that flows through this Absa Cape Epic all the way through to Val de Vie. So let's get to today's start of Stage 2 of the Absa Cape Epic in Hermanus at Hermanus High School, and all the main protagonists were loaded into the start chute. The top 10 in the men's and women's categories loaded from the front. Let's hear from them ahead of that start.
Yeah, the overall situation is quite good. We are third, but the Scot is quite so far. It's over 6 minutes, and I mean it's comfortable for them. But yeah, still 6 days, and we will see. Everybody can have a bad day, and there is epic, and nothing is done till Sunday.
Yeah, I know most of the route today. That's for sure an advantage. We did that in a previous year on a race, so it's good to know that, and it's for sure a small advantage. And for sure the last climb, it's going to be an important one to be at the front and be there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we only just started, so yeah, now it's all about getting into that groove and be efficient.
And the Danish race?
Løbet er kun lige startet, så det handler virkelig om at bevare koncentrationen. Det er nogle lange dage, og der er lang vej igen.
So where went the women's group, that elite women's group with Annika Langvall and Anna van der Breggen? It's certainly the bosses of this race, that's for sure, in the women's race. They've made that clear.
Yeah, we heard the comments there from Annika, and even in Danish, and I don't speak Danish, but I do know she said it's going to be a long day and a long week. Well, it's going to be even longer for her rivals because they're already at over 6 minutes behind, and it seems at the moment not a matter of if Annika and Anna win the Cape Epic Elite Women's Race, but by how much. And can they win every stage? Because they look super motivated to just stick the knife in every single day.
Yep. This is the lead men's group leaving Hermanus High School, a lovely venue for just a couple of nights at the Absa Cape Epic, and then heading away from the Indian Ocean coast and through the Himmel and Arda Valley once again, Neil.
It's a really beautiful setting this morning. We've got quite a bit of racing before we really get to what we've decided amongst ourselves is the selective part of the race.
To be fair, Nino also said so.
We're looking at the 61 kilometre mark. That's Bot River.
Yeah.
That's the old Hohook Pass. And we're expecting things to really split up. But that's not to say that we've got some really tricky terrain before then. The 22 kilometre mark, we've got a big climb, and then we've got the machine, which is the Land Rover technical terrain section. Anything can happen there. Some of the riders who may be caught behind on the climb will force the pace a bit, forcing maybe an error. And it might regroup around about the midway mark, but let's really look out for the action happening around about the 61 kilometre mark.
This is the way they came in yesterday. They're just heading out and away from Hermanus. So just, I think what we saw yesterday, we saw the Crossbow men's team finishing on the podium in Cape Town at the prologue. They lost an hour yesterday to all sorts of issues, some mechanicals we believe. But we did see Trek Salis and Marco come into the frame yesterday. We saw the Bulls teams performing really nicely yesterday. The marathon men coming into their own on the longer stages. So they'll be pleased with that.
They will be. And we did say on day one in Cape Town, that 20 kilometre prologue, it's a way to kick the race off, but it's not a true indication of form in a race like the Cape Epic. It's so long and so difficult. And the real marathon men, guys like Alban Lacata and Carl Platt, have been waiting for these longer stages. So it's maybe not a huge surprise to see them really improve their result from the prologue on day one to finishing on the podium in third place yesterday after the first really long, hard stage.
Daniel Gesmeyer on the front there for Centurion Folder. And they're a team also who will have ambitions later on in the week to perhaps snatch a stage here or there. And the Villiers team also making an appearance there. Alan Hatherley in the red jersey of the Absa African leaders. He and Matt Beers, the leading African team in the competition at the moment, in 8th place. They're 10 minutes and 18 seconds down. And so we scroll back. There's Andre Frischnecht as well in the frame. And Jochen Kess and Tristan De Lange there, the Namibian national champion, riding in support of the Centurion Vada team with Vincent Dorn.
You've got a beautiful view of Hermanus in the background there. You can just see the harbour, and if you look a bit closer, you can't see any whales. I don't know if you spotted any whales this morning.
No, I didn't actually.
I had a look yesterday afternoon. In fact, being here in this region as a foreigner, I'm really keen to have a look around. I did a really nice ride along the ocean front yesterday, and I got to admit, I know you're not supposed to, but I had a little sneak onto that cliff path to go and have a look. I was on my mountain bike, but I was going at walking pace, I can assure you.
Here's trouble for Nicola Robach and Connie Lawson. Not the happiest start for them.
Yeah, really early on to have a flat, and with such a big group, it's going to take a lot of energy to get back into the group. Let's hope that they get that sorted out very quickly.
13-15 behind at the start of the day, Connie Loss and Nicola Robach, a team that they felt really they had a pretty decent shot at perhaps having a serious go to the podium this year.
We had our eye on them because Robach has certainly been on the podium before. He's been on the podium twice. And Connie Loza is a talent that has just seemed to have not been realized over the last few years or so. And he arrived at the race looking really lean, looking really fit, highly motivated, new team, everything in front of him to do well, and to be scuppered by a puncture is very disappointing for them.
Although I guess if you're going to have an issue like a mechanical like they're having at the moment, it's probably better off having it early on when the bunch is all together. Nobody's really prepared to push the pace hard, so it increases your chances of actually returning to the group, although obviously you do have that waste of energy in a chase you'd rather not make.
One other team that perhaps are not performing to many of their supporters and fans level is Team Paiga Eurosteel, the South African team, all African jersey winners from last year, or one of their combinations from last year. Philip Bass and Matthijs Bierkes. They've had a tough day. Bass wasn't particularly well coming into the event, and that's happened before for that pair. And they at the moment are 22 minutes down, so they really are battling. But there's Nino Schurter and Lars Forster right next to Henri Gavancini. Cup of tea, Henri? No, I like coffee.
Keeping an eye on each other, obviously, and maybe they've buried the hatchet, as you said. Maybe not that deep it's still a little bit on the surface, a little bit of dirt over that hatchet. No doubt they'll want to pull it out again very soon.
Well, I think Avancini is really not willing to let Nino out of his sight and ride too far away from him, because he knows Nino very well and probably doesn't trust him to. If he lets him get a few metres head start, Nino might just say, well, I'm going to make you work hard, put in a little attack, make an acceleration, just make his life difficult. So, I think the animosity is still there. Even though they said, we spoke about it, we've shaken hands, we're going to move on, I don't think they're going to move on too far.
Yeah, they're rivals from the cross-country scene as well. I mean, Enrique Avancini had a really good cross-country season last year, his best yet, finishing in the top 5 of the overall World Cup season. He went on to win the marathon world title. So they see each other all the way through the season. The likes of perhaps Carl Platt and Albert Lecartre and the marathon men don't come into contact with these cross-country races that often. So the familiarity and the rivalry isn't quite as intense as perhaps with the cross-country guys who really do have something that strings along the whole year.
Well, they spend the weekends, 5 or 6 weekends together when they do the World Cup scene, and the World Cup is not just one race, it's not just a Sunday race, there's a race on the Friday, it's a short track race. And in fact, Enrique Avancini has won one of the editions, and Nino Schurter has not. So at least
of the short track ones on the Friday.
About the short track on the Friday, exactly.
Yep.
So he's obviously got the power, he's got the punch to win a race like that. No easy feat. Sam Gaze has won an edition like that, and it's going to be interesting to see exactly how much Enrique Avancini focuses on Nino Schurter rather than focusing on the race itself.
Matt Beers there from the Specialized Foundation NAD team, just rolling to the front. The tall rider originally from Neisner, now living in the Western Cape. And real talent and a good engine he's got. He and Alan Hathley will, if they have a good week this week, could find themselves very close to the podium. Lars Foster following. He did a lot of work on the front and led out Nino Schurter a lot yesterday. This man, in his first Absa Cape Epic, he's the European champion. He's clearly got the goods, hasn't he, Robbie?
Oh, well, he has. Yesterday, Lars was incredibly strong, did so much of the work, and the question mark was there. Is he going to be good enough to ride with Nino and go on the attack when Nino wants to force the pace? But he was doing plenty himself, and he was really, really impressive.
Roll back now to the women. This is the women's group coming over the top early on their stage, and we've spoken about the dominance, and we're only into the second stage of the Absa Cape Epic, the dominance of the Investec Songo Specialized pair, and you feel behind. It's going to be a bit of a battle for all the other podium positions. But this, as we keep saying, is it's a grueling attritional race.
And the attrition can not only just be a physical attrition, it can be the attrition of the bicycle and especially the tires, and any kind of mechanical can really cost. We saw yesterday with Alan Hathley and Matt Beers, they had a problem with the drivetrain, a very subtle problem. The derailleur was knocked and then wasn't shifting properly. And not only do they have to deal with that, they have to get it repaired, which takes time as well, which probably cost them around about 10 minutes. And let's look at it now. Investec Songo Specialized only have 5 minutes and 42 seconds on Crossbow racing.
Well, you just caught a glimpse there of Sabine Spitz, and Nadine Reeder, her partner, is the rider up front there. And Sabine hasn't had the best of starts to the week here. She's got a young partner, new partner, but she's maybe a little bit off the pace that Nadine is setting at this stage. And Sabine has seen this before with Jana Balamoida a couple of years ago. Perhaps went out too hard. She had to rein her in, and they won some stages at the end of the week. It's a long game, the Absa Cape Epic.
Well, they did lose a lot of time yesterday, Mirandel, Weavis, Rotveld, and what was about 15 minutes or so? That's a long time to lose and a long time to make up.
So this is the main bunch all together in the men's race. Peter Velderhaug there, you see in the white kit on the left-hand side. He's making a big impression, the Under-23 World Cup overall winner from last year, riding alongside Christian Heineck in his first race for Canyon.
He's also the Norwegian champion, and again, he had a really good day yesterday. I think maybe after a few hours the lights started to go out a bit, but they still held it together and had a good result. Still lying in 7th position overall. So
still with this men's group a little bit, now we're picking it up a little bit later, a little bit thinner. They rolled through the first water point. No stopping there.
No, first water point, and quite cool conditions today, a lot like yesterday, a little bit less cloud cover, so just going to warm up a little bit more, and obviously coming inland away from the ocean, so temperatures will be on the rise, but early on, no one prepared to stop just yet, and also getting
unless
close
they have
to that, unless of course, yes,
Yeah.
in this situation, and a push from the teammates, so whether that was a mechanical, he's just ridden himself off the road, and he's looking at that back tyre, giving it a test, so looks like he's had a flat. Probably just thrown a plug in there and not going as quick as possible.
The riders ride with small plugs, much the same as tyre plugs, and if there is a small cut in the tyre, they can, hopefully they've still got a bit of pressure left that hasn't been released too much, and put this, I guess you could say it's a slightly rubberized strip. It allows the sealant to congeal around there, and they're good for another few kilometres. However,
they
they
make your mind up very quickly, spike it immediately when you have to.
And then if there's a weakness in the tyre, they may even change that wheel at the tech zone when they get there.
Well, that was Sergio Manticon and Gutierrez and his partner Andres Chink, and they, you saw on that picture from our e-bike right in the action, they got back onto the back of the group quite quickly. It's Manuel Fumich is leading them up this climb as they head towards the top of this climb and then over the top. It may well be heading down to the technical zone, the Land Rover technical zone. Alan Hathley, Matt Beers here at the back.
The group starts to split up at this point, really tricky because it's narrow and the trail surfaces are pretty rough. There's a bit of sand, some rocks, and any mistake from someone in front, although it's quite rare for riders of this ability, puts the others back on the back foot and they would have to walk.
A little split coming on the climb right in this little section. So two riders off the front, and was that Fumich and Avancini? They were really pushing the pace.
Well, there we go. I think that's
Nino and Avancini.
Avancini keen to prove that he's got he's right there wherever Nino can pedal, he can pedal too.
I think they're just popping up the front to have a cup of tea. So this is heading up towards the top of the first really big climb of the day, the steep technical climb. As you can see, Hathley Beers off their bikes. Thomas Deitch behind on the e-bike is going okay. And here's Nino Schurter and Enrique Avancini.
And Enrique saying, well, Nino, whatever you can do, I can do a little bit more. Goes through to the front. I notice Fumich has just ridden into the picture down the bottom there. And Avancini are again wearing those hydration packs today.
Avancini needs to watch out for his teammate, not that he's going to blow him off. And if he's in any way struggling, it could be tricky.
Well, look at them now here. Well, Avancini off. And Schurter says, I can ride this, don't worry. They're heading up to the top, and on the other side is the Land Rover Technical Terrain.
Stage 2's Land Rover Technical Terrain unfolds on a 4.5 kilometre dusty track, and it starts with the riveting single track. I've got Matt the Mullet Beers to preview it with us. Let's rock and roll, Matt. Riders will have crested a climb and reached Pardonkloof Farm, and that's when you know you're onto Stage 2 Land Rover Technical Terrain. This is very rocky up here, lots of loose rocks, so one has to be quite careful of what gets spat out by the rider in front of his wheel. Matt negotiating here, putting his weight on the outside of the turn, make sure he gets maximum grip. This is relatively straightforward, nice fast flowing section. Matt getting some air. Nice double jump there. Phew. So just keep your wits about you. Again, following distance, quite important, because the soft sand, you don't want to reach a different kind of texture of the sand and then lose your concentration and then fall. So just make sure you just focus on the ride in front of you and see where his or her wheels are going. Here we got a nice shoot. Yo, nice. Wow, that's a great little section there. Back onto sandy section, and it's been somewhat cut by motorbike tracks over the years. Enduro riders come out here and twist a bit of throttle. You can see Matt's tyres moving quite a lot underneath in the soft sand in March. It's going to be hellishly dry, and riders will just have to negotiate it, take it in their stride. Okay. Whoa, banking there. Matt showing his motocross pedigree, having raced professionally in America. Now he's a Lycra bandit. Here's some rocky bits. Again, these are quite sharp rocks, so one must be careful. We've reached this riverbank or riverbed. Again, there's some sharp rocks in there, so just be careful. It has a penchant to cut tires. And now we're climbing up the other side of the bank. So something to be mindful of is that the 4.5 kilometer Land Rover technical terrain on stage 2 is rather undulating.
That is the Land Rover technical terrain, and Nino just loving it. These are the pictures from the riders coming down the other side. Oh, cool.
Nino really enjoying himself. Just see putting it up on the back wheel, just manualing over that hump, and really enjoying the technical terrain. And it just shows he's feeling good, he's feeling confident, and he's completely happy with the way the race is panning out at the moment. And I think also putting on a bit of a show for the others, just showing Avancini, like, look how much fun I'm having. Yesterday hasn't fazed me one little bit, and you know what, later on, I'm going to try and ride you out of the wheel again.
We're on board with Thomas Deitch on the e-bikes. These are media bikes. They're not in the race. They don't impact the race. They sit behind the last rider of every group, and if the rider comes up behind, they move out the way. They don't impact, and they could not be in better hands. Thomas Deitch and Stefan Sam. Sam, a 3-time winner. Deitch rode in support of Sam and Platt, so they know what they're doing out there. They know how close they can get and what they can do, and they do it very well.
It's highly useful having these media bikes in the race. We can really get a sense of exactly what it's like in the action, in the thick of it. And it's one of the things we've seen it in Formula One, we've seen it in road cycling, just getting a sense of exactly the visceral feeling of being right there in the action, in the racing.
Huber on the front there. Jaroslav Kulhavi poked his nose out the front a little bit as well for Investec Songo Specialized. And so the group has thinned out up that climb up towards the machine descent, that Land Rover technical terrain. Fantastic descent, absolutely sensational riding down there. And back on board, quite sandy here, and sand is one of those real hidden traps. You get it a little bit wrong, you plug into some really thick, heavy sand. It can either retard your progress a little bit or quite significantly, and you end up having a little lie down, but not these guys.
We rode the stage in August last year, and we noted that this is if there was any sand in any sandy sections in the Absa Cape Epic, it was today. Today was the sandy day. A lot of work has been done on the trails, so it's always what the surface looks like. We've been talking about the trail surface as a huge influencing factor on the race, and we saw last year, in fact, the sandy sections that Howard Grott struggled with. That had a major impact on his performance in the early parts of the race. Fortunately for them, him and Kulhavi came good, but one wrong turn, one stop, while the others head off. You can lose 10 seconds, and that 10 seconds can very easily turn into 10 minutes.
What we saw just there, now a lot of the group choosing that opportunity on that flat, open, fairly smooth district road to eat, and that's the difficulty on a technical race like this. As it's become more and more technical, the opportunity to eat and feed on the bike, with a single track, with a technical riding, with the groups close. If you miss one, that's where you can get yourself in trouble.
Well, you've really got to take every opportunity.
Yeah.
So whenever you come on one of these farm tracks, and particularly on the Thar roads, whether you want to or not, you should eat something and hydrate. And I think it's a big advantage. And for guys like Fumica Avancini, they're riding with the hydration packs. I get why some others don't want to. They say, oh, extra weight, and there's that cool factor. They don't like to be seen with a hydration pack. But in a race like this, and 8 days in a row, where we know nutrition, hydration, recovery is so critical, I think it's a great idea to wear one, and you can just drink on any part of the course. Just ride with the straw in your mouth, and if it was me, I'd be doing it too.
And we've heard of Team Sky on the road. They've been talking for many years about marginal gains, and this could be one of those marginal gains. If you're staying just slightly better hydrated than all of the rest of your rivals, and going into that each day, it could end up compounding, and then perhaps on day 7 or day 8, it makes the difference.
And being able to skip one water point per day at least, by wearing that pack,
Yep.
and it's got to be an advantage, and that mounts up over the course of the race.
So this is our leading women's team, Anna van der Breggen and Annika Langville, and they're getting past one of the mixed teams there.
Well, what I saw earlier when we saw that the group of the women's elite it's the first time I've seen Annika and Anna riding behind their rivals.
Yeah.
They're
Yes, we
passing
did see
teams
that
now,
earlier,
and
yeah.
they're making a
Yeah.
surge, but choosing to sit back a little bit more today, maybe just really wait for the finale of this stage before they try and get a gap over the rest.
And look at the trail surface there, really rocky, and these athletes are putting out some possibly 400 or 500 watts just to get up these climbs, and they're creeping along. So just testimony to exactly how hard this route is today.
Yeah, well, look how slow it is, and even before we saw those pictures of the elite men walking, all but Nino Schurter, everybody else was walking the section of trail. So really steep climbs today, and it's going to take its toll after yesterday, that first long hard stage. There's a lot of riders out there suffering and doing it tough.
Some of these trails, or a lot of these trails, are actually rideable. It's just that some of the athletes just take the call to rather walk. It takes a bit of the strain, a bit of the torque off their muscles, and not necessarily a rest, because they've still got to put in a bit of energy walking, but it means that they can maybe save their legs just a bit rather than grind their way up. They can have a bit of an easier time and save their legs for later.
Well, you get an indication of how hard it is when you see the very best teams in the race all getting off the bike and walking it, and that was Annika and Anna at the back of that group walking up the trail.
You almost bent double as she was pushing it up there. Now open roads for Team Scots Ram MTB as they power on the front here. I think they've got some company, and then quickly into the switchback climb. Again, the steepness of this is not done justice by the camera, though you can see how tough it is there.
What's notable is we've got Crossbow on the front there with the Scots Ram guys, and this is a very good sign for them. They were completely out of the picture yesterday after their bad luck put them back an hour. So on GC they're way back. They're really no threat to Scots Ram at all. And this could be to their favour. They could perhaps go for a stage. They're not a threat on overall, as we said, and this may give them the freedom. The other teams may give them the freedom to head out and maybe go out on a break and possibly win a stage. With this in mind, this is definitely going to be their objective. If you were this team, you would want to hunt for stages, because there's still a chance to stand on the podium, even though you're not in the GC running.
So this looks a little bit further down the trail, and I think this is live. Yes, it is. This is they've come through Bottreffier, and they're on what is known as the cut pass, the old Hohoek Pass, with the railway line down the right. The Jakkelsrivier is down the bottom of that valley, and this is looking like the select group here. Crossbow in the front there, Cannondale Factory Racing, Scott MTB, and Trek Celes and Marco. So 4 teams have made a break on the base of this pass, and they've got to climb. It's not a steep climb by any stretch of the imagination. It's the old road that before the building of the highway, probably 100 meters above this, this was how people used to get from Elgin-Crossbow down into the Overberg.
That's an impressive and an auspicious roll call we've got there. We've got Scots Ram Racing, we've got Team Crossbow, Trek Celes and Marco, and Cannondale Factory Racing. And with this in mind, this is exactly where we thought the race was really going to split apart, really going to make any of those attacks, any of those splits in the group. This is where it would stick.
Well, we will bring you images through the day as and when we have really clear pictures, which we sincerely hope will be most of the day. But we're back with our leading women's teams here. It looks like the Crossbow pair of Ariane Lutia and Maya Rostovska are on the front of this group and doing the work, trying to make back some of the time that they've lost over the first 2 days against the Investec Songo Specialized pair.
Well, this could be turning into a head-to-head battle between Crossbow Racing and Investec Songo Specialized. They hit the 3rd water point. That was the 49-kilometer mark, and they were all together with Summit Finn 2 minutes 15 behind. So
that group, we're back with the men's lead group up this old cut pass. It's the Crossbow riders on the front. Sergio Mantegon Gutierrez and Andres Chink from the Czech Republic. Mantegon Gutierrez, the Spaniard, and the the helicopter trying to bring us clean images up that valley. It's tricky. It's not the best opportunity and not the best place. Eric Kleinant's going through there. And
that's one half of the Grandmasters leaders.
Yes.
So that's Zavedo we're looking to see if we can spot Bart Brenchens.
Yeah. Eric Kleinant's riding way back in support of the Canyon team. Back with our lead group.
Now there's 4 riders here. If they can make this attack stick, or if they can make the split stick, they've really got to look at the stage now. They're going to be they're going to shift their focus away from getting in the group and staying in a nice break, and they're going to look at what's what that finish line is going to look like, so they can sprint for a stage win.
Well, Avancini and Fumic have moved up to the front now, ahead of the cross spur pair, and the Scots Ram pair. Last force just looking across at Nino Schurter.
Seems that they're sharing the load, sharing the work at the front. We can see the Trekkies coming to the front and doing their share of the load. Maybe they don't want to repeat a repeat episode of yesterday where there's perhaps an argument or a heated discussion about who takes the front, who then does the work, and be keen to see how those politics play out as we get closer to the finish.
We're getting some time checks from out on course, where we get, apart from the official time checks through the water points, we're getting a few time checks from our team out there, and also hearing that Yaro and Sam Gaze are taking some serious strain. They're almost 4 minutes behind in a really fragmented chase group, so they are a long way off the pace again today. Really suffered yesterday, and I think Sam probably feeling the effects of that fall that he had.
Yeah.
Apparently he jackknifed it in the sand, went over the handlebars and landed on his head. And of course, straight after that, we saw Yarrow have a problem with his shoe, have to retighten his cleat. But it seems to be going from bad to worse for those 2 riders. So they're quite a ways back off this group of favourites, and narrowed down now just to 4 teams. And there's a moment where they can sort of consolidate and just not panic too much about position. It's quite an open climb, little rougher sections, but this cutting all the way through. There's plenty of room to move, and Nino's decided now's the moment. We're going to go back up and around to the front. They don't want to get caught out on this little more technical part of this trail.
And if you're in this front group, you're in quite not necessarily a comfortable position, but your mindset would be perhaps a bit more at ease. Because if you're caught behind, you're constantly thinking what's going on in your mind is that you know where you want to be and you know where you should be, and you're not. And that can eat away at an athlete, especially when you're just pushing the pace a little bit too much. Whereas here, the guys have got their work cut out for them. They know exactly what they've got to do. They've got to keep pace, stay in the group, stay out of trouble, keep their bikes in one piece, their tires in one piece, and make it to the finish so they can sprint for the stage win.
And now that how it's going to play out for the stage win becomes interesting. On day 1, the first long stage, it's more an all-out assault, try and get as much time as you can, establish your position in the GC. Now it starts to turn to stage wins. There's a number of teams there already significantly behind in the general classification. This is a chase group with some of the bulls.
Yeah,
this group is around a minute and a half behind.
Okay, and that's Jochen Kess and his partner Daniel Gismar. Also in this group are the Absa Africa leaders in the red jerseys. Hathelin Beers of the Specialized Foundation team, and Canyon of Christian Heineck, who just turned around to have a look at the well-being of his partner Peter Fagerhout, the young Norwegian, the under-23 World Cup cross-country champion. Look at that gap. That's a significant gap, as Robbie's illustrated, and once that elastic snaps, it's very difficult for this chase group to make up time. It's likely that lead group is going to just quietly increase the lead as they head up towards the Hohook Hotel.
Yeah, they just seem to be edging away second by second. A few moments ago, this chase group was at 1:17. Now it's out over a minute and a half. So on this climb, they're just slowly but surely just eking out more of a lead.
And we have to feel for the riders, or at least spare a thought for them who are back, because we're looking at 4 teams in the front. That was Scots Ram, Crossbow, Celis and Marco, and Cannondale Factory Racing. And behind there's some really significant teams. We've got Canyon, of course the pairing of Adam Hatherley and Matt Beers, and we had
Gersmeyer
and
and
Gersmeyer.
Yep.
These are all previous stage winners and podium position guys. So we've got an elite group in front, and even though that the chasing form might not be in the front, they've still got some gains on some of the other teams in the overall GC.
A little bit earlier, both the Trek Cel San Marco teams were in the front group, but Trek 2, the team of Rabensteiner and Casagrande, they had a technical problem down around Bot Riviere, and they've dropped away from the group. And in fact, they're behind the Chase Group 2, so mechanical forcing them backwards. As we see live pictures now of our lead women, that's Anneke Langwal and Anna van der Breggen.
So on these
and
technical
they're just
sections,
chasing Lutti, I think, is still. I think I spotted along with
just
Maya
up
just
ahead.
in front. So
Exactly,
they're putting the
but
pressure on them on the downhill because they know this is where Anna van der Breggen is a little bit vulnerable.
It's
She
their
had a small
weakness.
crash yesterday too.
Precisely, and that just even a crash like that could, if you've got a niggle on the bike, it can just eat away at you, and can maybe you adjust your position, and that can cause an injury. So they're going to have to watch out very carefully that Team Crossbow don't get too far.
How about that?
How about what we just saw
Going
there?
straight through the S-bends. Now, that has been an issue before.
I'm
the
sure
Absa
that's
Cape
got to
Epic.
be frowned upon.
And they went. That's a switchback that they chose to go straight, cut straight across, not to follow the designated route. That may come back to haunt them. Who
We need
knows?
to just check on those rules exactly how the course is marked. But the main thing is that these athletes are clearly on the limit, and they really want to take as much of an advantage as they possibly can. They do not want to let this Crossbow team loose at all.
This is on the Wildekrans single tracks at Wildekrans farm before Botrafie, and it's a beautiful piece of trail. Back with our leading men as we head out towards Hoek, and they're coming to the end of the pass. The Hoek Hotel is just beyond, out of sight beyond those cars, and the N2, the national highway that connects Cape Town with the north of the country of South Africa, all the way up Port Elizabeth, East London, Durban and the like. That is just to the left of these riders.
And the spectators, they're treated to really amazing display of the world's best mountain bikers.
Fogerhout on the front here, Heineck with him, Hatherley, Beers, and then Simon Stibjan, and should be just behind him the shape of Urshuber, former winner, 2016 winner with Carl Platt. No sign of Platt and Alban Lecata, and then Jochen Kess and Daniel Gesmeyer.
And Gesmeyer separately, when they've ridden separately, they've won stages, and let's hope that they'll have a good time of it this year. They've won the Swiss Epic, of course, and no doubt a good team dynamic going on there. And they are traditionally marathon riders. They're not really on the UCI World Cup circuit in terms of cross-country racing. This is really their natural habitat. They're used to these long open roads, putting out some big diesel efforts, and they know exactly how to measure those efforts and stay in contention, making sure that they're ready to pounce when anyone else makes a mistake.
Yeah, Gesmeyer, runner-up in the Marathon Worlds last year, Enrico Avancini, so he's got plenty of credentials there. If you look at this group, it is the marathon men, Heineck on the front. There's a cross-country racer right on the front, and that's Fogerhout, the youngster, the under-23 World Cup champion. Then Heineck, Beers and Hatherley under-23 World Champion. So plenty of pedigree there. Uber and Steve-John, marathon stage races, and then Gesmeyer and Kess.
And what a ride with Hatherley and Beers. They're really at the front end of the pace. The all South African pair wearing the all Africa jersey. That means they're the best Africans in the race so far, and they'll look to keep that jersey all the way through. They are riding, supposedly there was a discussion as to whether they would be riding in support of Jaroslav Kulharvi and Sam Gaze, but it appears because they're up front, the team orders are go and do what you got to do.
Absolutely, as Robbie told us a little earlier, Gaze and Kulharvi are having a tough day of it. They had a tough day yesterday with that fall for Sam and the footwear issue for Kulharvi, so they're in a bit of distress and losing time. So Hatherley and Beers are free to fly, and they have real talent. Many people believe this is the team of the future for South Africa. They're to have a chance to win this Absa Cape Epic, an all South African team. Perhaps it lies on the shoulders of Matt Beers and Alan Hatherley.
Well, if they continue like this and they've put their bad luck behind them, hopefully they had a puncture on the prologue, which arguably you could say lost them the prologue, certainly lost them a podium spot. They had derailleur issues, drivetrain issues yesterday, and today could be their day.
Yeah, in the prologue, they were only 20 seconds down on Nino and Lars, and then, they, of course, with that puncture, that lost them at another minute, and it was only 1.5 kilometres from the finish, but had dire consequences for them, not being able to corner at all on that rear flat for Matt Beers.
They'll all be aiming for the time check. They're going to be looking to see exactly what that time gap is. At the 75 kilometre mark, we marked it as Lebanon, and we expect to see them there soon. We expect to see the splits, and from that point on, it's 15 kilometres of some pretty lumpy terrain. Once they reach Oak Valley, there's some single track. Difficult to make up a lot of time on that single track unless you're really pushing the limits, taking big risks. Not that many open road sections where they can really put the power down. So let's see exactly how that race pans out from the 75 kilometre mark.
Well, they swing down away from the N1 and just past the old Hohook Hotel, which is the oldest hotel in South Africa, the oldest licensed hotel in South Africa. Dates back to the ground floor to 1779.
Just an update, re the time. I had a time check come in. The lead group must have switched off just a little bit because the chase group has come into 1 minute and 5 seconds behind. So they're starting to make inroads on this lead.
Yeah, they passed through the grounds of the Hohook Hotel, and one of the oldest blue gums incidentally planted there in the foreground as you went past the reception area. 1848. It's 11 meters wide. Here they go on this little Thar section, and now Heineck has gone to the front.
It's a elite chase group, but it doesn't look like they're sharing the load. We saw up front that Scots Ram, Crossbow were really sharing the load, doing some work, all cooperating. They're all friends, of course, until they reach the finish line. And these two are leaving it completely up to the Canyon team to really take the initiative and make the pace. It really should be up to Centurion Vowed to give a bit of a hand, lend a leg, so-called, just to try and make up that deficit.
Well, Neil, you mentioned they're all friends in the group sharing the work, but I just wonder in the front group how friendly it is and how much Avancini and Fumit are contributing to the placemaking up there, and maybe that is the reason that this chase group is starting to make a comeback, and you see the gap there not so long, quite a hill they've got to go up, but it's at around a minute at the moment, so maybe they're just starting to play a little bit of cat and mouse in that front group and starting to think about the stage with nobody willing to push the pace too hard.
Well, this is Anneke Langwil and Maya Worstovska leading the women's race in the Wildekrans single tracks. Incidentally, the Wildekrans single trails very much the work of Bram Gericke, the winemaker on Wildekrans farm. And he, in fact, Bram is racing at the Absa Cape Epic this year, so he'll be riding through his own territory.
Well, credit to Anna van der Breggen. She's been put up front. Anneke Langwil's decided that it's really a good idea to have her partner up front. Keep an eye on her. If she does make any mistakes, at least she'll be there on hand to help. And we've got Maya Worstovska and Ariane Luthi. It's hard to tell exactly which one of them is in front right now, but it's likely that the weaker partner, the slower partner on the single track, will be let to lead the field. This just allows a bit of an insurance policy if something does go wrong, so there are no gaps between the two teams.
It looked to me like it was Maya who was riding on the front, and I'm really curious to see what might get said about that section we saw before, with both teams cut through those hairpins, and effectively Langwil and van der Breggen were forced to follow the line of the Crossbow team as they cut through those hairpins, but nonetheless they both did it. I'm really curious as to what the ruling is on that.
Yeah, I got to stick to the route, and whether that'll be deemed as taking an unfair advantage, we don't know. But that's the leading women, and this is the chase group in the men's race.
I think let's have a closer look. We could possibly
Oh no, it's
spot
the lead
yellow
group. Beg your
jerseys.
pardon. It is the lead group.
They're taking the initiative once again. They're getting a bit of assistance from Crossbow, who are very keen not to have this. If there's going to be a sprint finish, they want to keep that group as small as possible. The last thing you want to do is reach the stage location. You don't want to reach the finish area with too many teams. It leaves it up to fate a little bit too much. You want to keep that group as small as possible. Will increase your odds of getting on the podium.
Well, it's Lars Forster who's setting the pace at the moment. Nino Shirt in his wheel, and the Crossbow team behind them, and really taking a bit of a back seat is the Cannondale racing team, Fumit and Avancini.
Just again, just a reminder that the man, the rider right at the back of this group is the odd man. He's the 9th rider, if you like, and that is Thomas Dietsch, who's riding the media bike, the e-bike, the former Bulls rider. So don't take him into account when you look at the races here. 8 riders all competing.
This is good news for the chase group. You really see that the pace was off. First it was riding on the front, but really not forcing it. Back to some of our women's teams here on the chase. They're probably riding 2.5 to 3 minutes behind our lead 2 teams.
And nice to see Craig Uriah and Andrew Divenacher, 2 hard-working men, professionals in their business lives who race at the sharp end of this event every year. They're perhaps the strongest amateur team. Here's a little dart on the front. Andres Sink and Sergio Mantegon Gutierrez look across and have a go.
Well, this is exactly what they need to do. They lost an hour yesterday, so they're thinking purely about the stage win. But Lars Forster probably got the call from Nino, go, don't let them get away. They'd obviously like to get the stage win for themselves, but it's a textbook move from a team who's lost so much time already on day one. Go out and try and hunt the stage win, make an attack and see if everybody will just look at each other and let you ride off down the trail.
Well, you have to try something, and especially when you've lost so much time. But what's also interesting is the clever riders will watch to see how the other riders are able to respond. So Nino Schurter will be looking just to see how well the Trekkies respond, especially how well Avancini responds. And of course, the other half of Avancini's team, Cannondale Factory Racing, is Manuel Fumich. Is Manuel Fumich struggling? He looked to be okay on that section when that acceleration went. But time will tell. If another one goes, maybe we spoke too soon. There's a bit of a gap opening up.
Yeah, look at Avancini just closing that.
Avancini just putting one body between that gap. So that the gap does shrink when there's another body in between. Makes it just a little bit easier to close it. 10 bike lengths is just a little bit better than 11 bike lengths.
Looking over their shoulders constantly, Sink and Mantegon Gutierrez making double sure that they've created a gap or not as it comes together again down the descent here. Look at the fires that devastated this part of the world. It really has been a terrible summer for the fires in the Overberg region. Absolutely burning it out. Meanwhile, Crossbow keep looking. What damage have they done? It might only unfold as they get closer, because there's some really steep pitches to come still.
Well, they've made one dig at it, and it's not always the first attack that sticks. It's very often the second and third one. With the first attack softens everyone up, and the second attack just might be the one that breaks the elastic. So let's see what they do.
Well, that first attack, not really on a terribly difficult section. The pace wasn't really on. Not everybody was suffering. They're really relying on the others just looking at them and say, well, you're an hour behind. We don't have to react, but they did. Maybe the Crossbow team has to take a risk and try attacking in one of the technical little downhills where the others might say, okay, that sort of risk I'm not going to take, and we'll let you get the gap, and then maybe they can hold them off. But at the moment, nobody is giving a stage win away for free.
And of course, there's 3 spots on the podium and 4 teams. So somebody's going to sacrifice that spot.
Well, I wonder if any of the other teams, and I'm sure the Trek riders did notice that because they were last position of the group, but if Nino and Lars noticed that Fumich had to let the wheel go and created that gap, and that they'll now know he's in a little bit of trouble when we make an acceleration, so they just keep that up their sleeve and know they can offload him.
Mantegon Gutierrez and Sink, the Spaniard, and the Czech rider, both runners up in their respective national championships last year. Mantegon Gutierrez to David Valero in the Spanish championship, and Andres Sink to a chap called Jaroslav Kulhavi. So they both got great credentials. Raced the World Cup Series last year. Mantegon Gutierrez's best result was 11th at La Bresse in France, and Sink was 9th in Andorra, the high altitude in Andorra. Here we go with the Scots Ram on the front, just an increase in intensity, stretching it out, another little dig, this time from the race leaders in the yellow jerseys.
We saw there the Trekkies scrambling for the wheel. That's the last thing you want to do. Is you want to be absolutely on high alert with Nino Schurter and Lars Foster on the front. They've got the pedigree, and if any move goes, they want to be right on the wheel. Do not want to let a single inch go. Makes a big difference even in mountain biking, although we see it a lot on the road. The draft behind the rider makes a big difference. Mountain biking as well, and also just a psychological advantage. If you're not on the wheel, if you're leaving a gap, just that much harder to close it.
Well, they're now approaching that final water point at Lebanon. That leaves them around 15 kilometres to race to the end of this stage here in Oak Valley. So getting down to the really pointy end, 15k to go. And on this sort of terrain with a couple of hills they've got, I imagine that'll take them somewhere around 35 to 40 minutes, something like that, until they get to the finish. So we're starting to measure their efforts and thinking, how much have I got in the tank? How far out can we go and open up a gap and go at full throttle?
Robbie, you obviously, when you were racing on the road, you would do all that prep, all the research, get scouts to go and ride the finish to know exactly what was coming up. You'd know exactly how the finish happened. A lot of these riders have absolutely no idea what they're in for coming to the finish here. So it makes those attacks all the more tricky in that you don't know what's going to come around the corner.
You are flying blind, and you've really got to ride on instinct and just figure out how hard the climb is, how much everyone is suffering, is it the moment to go? And you've got to see those moments of weakness from the others and then seize that opportunity.
So on the second group now, and it's the Bulls pair, Stibjan and Urshuber, followed by Heineck, Peter Farhawk, and the African jersey leaders, Beers and Hathley, and Gesma and Kess.
Credit to the camera work, you can really actually get an idea of how steep this climb is. Just a few seconds ago, you would see the switchback, and you can see the angle of the road upwards, and it's a really tough climb. Of course, you can see how slowly the riders are going. That's always an indication. You know they're putting out maximum effort to be creeping along like this. It must be really steep. Hathley, and behind him, Matt Beers.
One important point coming up with that water point, who in the front group needs to make a stop?
Yeah.
Who's been riding along for the last few kilometres thinking, I really need to get to that point and make a quick stop, which gives riders in the second group the opportunity to play catch up, maybe skip it and take the risk of dehydrating completely and cramping, but could get them back in touch with this front group by just accelerating through that water point.
Bulls on the front here in this chase group. Great images from the back of the motorbike as they power up this incline. And we'll should be able to get a gap. Did you see that stick fly up from the motorbike there? You don't want sticks flying around into the bikes. Back with the lead group here. And
Gutierrez leads them through into the Gutierrez on the front, the slightly smaller rider on Czech, the taller rider, the Czech, and looks like the very cohesive unit there, the Scots Ram guys. They together, where the other teams are split up a bit. That could be to their advantage.
Yeah, there's Avancini and Fumic, and then right at the back the Trek Salis and Marco Peporo and Ferraro.
Well, the fact that Crossbow are riding like this, you saw them make an attack, but now they're just really pushing the pace on the front. Maybe they're thinking, well, we're just going to use this opportunity, being in the front group, to push on, try and gain some time back on all those teams that we lost time to yesterday. If they can get the stage win, great, but maybe just trying to improve their general classification at the moment.
Now, tactically, we've got Trek Salis and Marco behind, and they really they would be lying fourth overall.
Here's that water point, so let's see if anybody really needs to make a stop. You'd think this close to the finish they would try and push on.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, we're back with Stibjan and Uber, Heineck, Feldhawk.
Stopping at the water point, so the cross-spur riders, but Avancini and
Avancini's
Fumic
gone.
straight through, one of the Trek, Celis and Marco riders as well. And this could be the advantage of carrying that hydration pack. They've used that to their advantage. They've taken bottles at other water points, and now they're able to push on through. This will be an attack that will try and take them to the finish for sure. Fumic has been suffering, so this is a really good thing for the Cannondale team, and they're going to go for it.
Quick change of direction now, and Scots Ram have also stopped at the water point.
So we've spoken about it a few times with those hydration packs that nobody wants to wear, but the Cannondale team, they're showing how useful that can be. They've had everything on board, and they're then able to strategically skip a water point, and right now they've put everybody else on the chase. I do think Forster and Nino can come back and drag the rest up, but it's energy.
Absolutely.
Well, look how motivated they are. They got their ears pinned back now, and they rabbit up the road. They can see them, which is always an advantage. They're going to put in maximum effort, and they have to be really careful now not to try and close that gap too fast. You go into your red zone, not a good idea.
And it's not surprising to see there's Avancini doing the work. Fumic has been struggling a little bit, so it's Avancini taking the responsibility, doing the work, and he's also got an axe to grind with Nino Schurter, and he wants to make him chase with everything he's got. But at the moment, Nino's just been sitting behind his own teammate, Lars Forster, letting him close this gap down.
No doubt Lino will take some initiative.
Yeah, it's, the close is going to come here. Forster on the front there, Schurter, and then Gutierrez and Tink. And Ferrara at the back. Poro stayed with the attacking riders.
This plays out well for the Crossbow team because they know the battle for GC is going on. They know that there's a battle between Nino Schurter and Henrique Avancini. So they can take advantage if they can get a bit of a free ride back to that group, save a bit of energy, and save a bit for the sprint.
Now closing the gap down, now almost closed, and just missing the corner a little bit, Fumic there. But it's going well for Trek Stella San Marco. We've got a rider sitting behind in the wheels in the first group and in the second group, so saving energy while everybody else is on the attack or on the chase.
Often in road cycling, there's a little bit of a gentleman's agreement that happens at the feed zones, and looks like that gentleman's agreement
Here's
no
an
longer
interesting
applies.
picture. Christoph Sauser and Simon Andreasen riding for the Investixongo Specialized team. Andreasen in his first Absa Cape Epic, a former junior world champion, so it's a voyage of discovery for this young man. Couldn't ask for a better mentor.
These guys are riding effectively in support of Sam Gaze and Jaroslav Kulhavi. I think they're in front of them.
I was going to say, I think they are. Now they're riding in support of Hatheli and Beers, I think.
Yeah.
Just goes to show how quickly the team dynamics can change. They have to adapt almost immediately, real time, to the circumstances. If things aren't looking good for the so-called first team, move the focus to the second team.
Avancini not wanting to give up on his attack, still really pushing the pace, and I think he's going to soon put his own teammate Fumic in trouble. He's just starting to open up a little gap to the wheel there of Lars Forster. Nino in second position, and I'm sure Nino would like to put it in an attack of his own now to show Avancini who's boss. So, what we heard yesterday after the finish, all those comments, and like we said, Fumic losing the wheel now as his own teammate is pushing the pace, and Nino will be sizing up an attack of his own.
And that, Neil, you referred to it earlier, how the Scots Ram pair are as one all the time, and they put themselves in between these two, knowing Fumic is the weak link here. If they can force Avancini to push the pace a little too much.
What Fumic can't afford to do is yell out to Avancini to say, slow down a little bit, because that is a signal to the Scots Ram boys that I'm in trouble, you might as well attack.
Yeah. And that's the big dilemma right here, because if Avancini drags the Scots Ram guys up the road, he still has to drop back to Avancini.
Well, there goes the gap. Fumic really had to work hard to close it, that first little pinch, and it's opened up. It's 10, 15 metres now. Avancini, he really needs to take a look back. But as they get through this switchback, he'll be able to see the gap, but so will the Scots Ram boys.
And they're on single track now, so any issue, if Avancini, if it gets too big, he's opening up the gap all the time. There's nowhere to pull over.
Avancini needs to slow up now, use the single track to his advantage. He can block the route so they can't get past, and slow it up and allow Fumic to come back, which is exactly what he's doing. So he's really eased off, and look, he's straight back in the wheel. So Avancini noticed that Fumic was having trouble, but at least it's single track and he can be in control of the pace.
Yeah, the terrain is such where a really tight bend like that can allow the rider, even if there's a gap behind, can just allow the rider a bit of time to get back on and neutralize any danger.
Even on the single track, if the Scots Ram guys wanted to try and get past, try and squeeze past, really very easy for Avancini to make himself that little bit wider, and really there's a huge risk of going off the edge.
Well, Robbie, you'll know from road cycling that the elbows can get really wide, and
oh, I don't know, I've never done that.
Let's just see if the headbutt comes out.
Careful.
This is Henrique Avancini, and then the Scots Ram pair of Nino Schurter and his partner Lars Forster, Manuel Fumic behind him, and then the Crossbow pair and Trexella San Marco. The lead group on stage 2 of the Absa Cape Epic as we head towards Oak Valley and the finish of another dramatic day in this untamed African mountain bike race.
Well, on the face of it, riding a clever race, the Trekkies and Crossbow, letting the battle happen between the two GC teams. They know that they're not really being considered as overall GC contenders, but that's playing to their advantage. They're going to look very carefully at think to their minds if they've got any idea of what the finish line looks like, where they've got to be. That's what's going to be on their minds right now. Where the corners are, how long they've got after the last corner, where they should be sitting in the group in that corner. All things to be considered when going for the sprint finish.
Well, really, Crossbow and Trek Sella San Marco, they've just got ringside seats to the grudge match between Cannondale and Scots Ram at the moment, and just letting it all play out, and really may be able to take advantage of all of that and start to focus on the stage win. Certainly, I think the riders from Trek would hope they can spring a surprise and get themselves on the top step of the podium. Here's an attack again by the Crossbow. Andre Sink and Montacon, one of them up the left-hand side, but the other teammate just slotting back in behind.
They're dipping in and out of single track and trail all over the place, yep.
But they have then got both of themselves ahead of Manuel Fumic, so they've seen the problems he's been having, letting a gap go. So if they are able to force the pace enough that they can get rid of Fumic, then they can gap off Trek as well and at least guarantee themselves of a top 2 position on the stage.
And all about pro cycling is that the cyclists will not only know their own efforts and know exactly how badly they're doing, but one of the things that they're really going to be in tune with is exactly what their rivals are feeling. And they'll look for all those signs like a dip of the head. We saw Carl Platz dipping, the head dipping between his shoulders. They'll be watching Fumic's body language very carefully.
So Crossbow have gone to the front here. And Avancini, second wheel now. Schurter and Forster. Now there's a problem here for Fumic, you feel?
Yeah, well, Avancini shutting down this attack, but it's putting Fumic in trouble, and he's at 5 or 6 lengths behind and starting to get gapped off more and more. So Avancini, he's doing the most damage to his own teammate, and he may be better off just letting the Crossbow rider go and just maintaining pace on the single track, keeping Fumic in touch.
Great technique and great strength these riders showing on this twisty switchback laden single track as they head towards Paul Kluver. And again, Avancini out of the saddle just to keep the momentum going, but he doesn't want to cook it too much because that man, Fumic, is his real concern.
Well, credit to Fumic. If he is in trouble, if he is struggling, he is certainly keeping it together, and he's struggling at a very high level. He's got the mental strength to be able to just know exactly how to measure his efforts, not put too much in, use the corners, use the slowing down of the teams in front to catch up.
And it's actually good to ride a few lengths off. You can really get your right line for the corner, use the momentum when you've got it and run back and close that gap a little bit. So you don't want to be right on the wheel. Of course, if someone right in front of you makes a mistake, well, you're part of their mistake.
And you can carry some speed into those corners and just use a little bit less energy, having to accelerate again out of them.
Tandid Lebanon single tracks delivering great drama and lovely images here as Sergio Montacon Gutierrez, I think it is, on the front there. This is Thomas Deitch right at the back with the Bulls e-bike, media bike.
Perfect view of exactly what's going on. It's great to sit and chat to the e-bike riders. They get the best seats in the house and just get an idea of what was really going on the ground. Often got a very accurate account of exactly blow by blow what's happening in the racing.
Unbelievable speeds they're going. If you consider they're going up this incline on the single track, which is changing direction all the time. These are the best riders in the world showing us exactly how to do it. Wonderful to watch.
Bora and Ferraro having a fantastic day. They're really great riders, and they've had some really good results at the Absa Cape Epic. Seem to just be a highly cohesive unit, and they have the luxury of depth of talent in their team, and they can select really the fastest riders, put the 2 fastest together, and the others form a backup team.
This is the chase group: Christian Heineck, Peter Feldhog, and one of the Centurion Varda men, and not the other. That's Matt Beers and Alan Hatherley, and they've dropped off this group a little bit. But if you look at this group, only one of the Centurion Varda men in there.
We'll try and look up ahead to see if the Centurion Varda has left the hair go, but that looks like it's Daniel Gesmeyer, so Jochen Kess could be struggling behind the Hatherley and Beers pair.
who themselves have just throttled back a fraction on this single track.
Athlete letting Beers ride up front. Chance that he struggled. Yes, there we saw Jochen Kess passing. So Jochen Kess is off the pace. Hatherley and Matt Beers possibly wait for one of the descents just to get back on terms with this chase group.
This is a specialised foundation NAD pair of Beers and Hatherley. A reminder that the Investec Songo specialised team of Jaroslav Kulhavi and his partner Sam Gaze are way off the pace today. At one stage over 4 minutes, and it could be a lot more than that as we speak, because it could go out to, I know that if you're looking down, we're looking down at the time gaps, the likes of Julian Jessup and his partner Arno de Toy, 9 minutes and 50 back, and Kulhavi and Gaze appear to be behind them. So that's how serious it is for Investec Songo specialised.
Well, Kulhavi and Gaze were nowhere near the top 15 at the water point 4. That would be the Lebanon section at the 75 kilometer mark, so it doesn't look good for that pair. However, the Specialized Foundation NAD were 122, so they were still in that chase group, was at the timing point was 122 back.
Yeah, Sauza and Andreasen, who we caught a glimpse of earlier, are indeed they're 4 minutes back ahead of the third group, chasing to keep in touch with Athlete Beers. This is the lead group here, and Fumic saying, "I'm not done yet," and putting his nose in the wind here a little.
We've watched
trying
the gaps,
to anyway.
We've watched the gaps form with Fumic, but he's using all the tricks he knows just to stay in that group, stay in contention.
He knows a few too.
Just looking at some of those time checks through that last water point at 75 kilometres covered with 15 to go. Seeing the Australian team, Brendan Johnson and Cameron Ivory, coming through at 12 minutes 23 off this lead group. And that moves them up one place at the moment from where they started overall this morning. So well within the top 20.
Carl Platt and Alban Lecata are 8 minutes and 20 seconds down after their good day yesterday, not going so well today. Still no sign of Kulhavi and Gaze.
Well, we've got to look at the overall results when we're looking at the Bulls. The Bulls, the Heroes team were lying 5th at the beginning of the day and 6 short, just a little bit behind, 1 minute behind them. So it's 7 minutes 30 behind Scots Ram. Or Carl Platt and Alban Lecata, that's the Bulls Legends. The Bulls Heroes team 6 minutes 30 behind Scots Ram.
Trek Ellis and Marco for the first time putting themselves on the front here. Ferraro and Samuele Porro, whilst Avancini and Fumic right at the back of this lead group.
I think Fumic will be very pleased if he doesn't lose any time today. He's struggled on a number of occasions, been gapped off, had to chase back on, and it's been often his own teammate Avancini doing the damage. So now just sitting back and following the wheels at the moment. Maybe Fumic had a word to his teammate to just stop pushing the pace because you've got me in trouble.
Yeah, that was close. Could easily have gone so wrong.
Very undulating this terrain, and the run into the finish here at Oak Valley is technical. It's a lot of single track, only really onto the field, and there's not much there, probably 70 meters into the right-hander, and then maybe 80, 90 meters to the arch, where Sonia's team support and spectators are gathering to welcome these riders in the next probably 15 minutes or so, maybe even less. Screecher brakes, little overcook on the front, but no problem at all.
Well, it seems it won't be long until they turn off this farm track and get onto the real mountain bike trails, skirting the vineyards.
A great sight in this part of the world, some full dams. We've had devastating drought over the last year and a half in the Western Cape. Some good winter rains in 2018, and a lot of these dams back to where they should be. In fact, there was a dam in this region that the farmers got together and decided to open their hearts and the taps and send water through to the Western Cape. So really generous from the farmers here, but they've been rewarded with some good rains themselves. Cross Spur, Scots Ram, Trek Ellis and Marco, and Cannondale Factory Racing. Heads of state in today's stage 2 of the Absa Cape Epic. Look at Avancini just going up ahead there, little surge from him. Twisting and turning, And now Scots Ram go on the front. Schurter and forced a little scramble there from arduous, just making sure they don't get left behind.
So every corner, just keep an eye out for Nino Schurter and Lars Foster. They'll be looking to see who's at the back of the group. And notably, I haven't seen he was at the back. He was second last wheel. That'll be won't go unnoticed with the Scots Ram team. They'll be checking out if they can put in a bit of an acceleration, make them chase. Just starts to put the needle in and wear the opponents down.
Well, I just noticed as they took that sharp right-hand turn and threw that big puddle in the corner, that Manuel Fumici took the inside, made sure he got in front of the cross spur riders, tried to get back up to the front, noticing that Forster and Schurter are on the front. Just really struggling to close down that last bike length, where the Trek Sella San Marco riders, they're finding they're going a little bit too much with the pressure being applied by Schramm Scott.
The pace really has been white hot up until now, and sometimes riders just get to a point where they just cannot anymore. The lights go out really quickly. Some go in a slow fade, but it looks like the race is pretty much over for these two.
It's almost over for all of them, Neil, because look at the gap opening up at the front. Nino and Lars side by side up this drag, and Fumic is going out the back.
Fumic is the next to go. This is where it could really count for the cross spur team. They could, if they can get back on terms with Nino Schurter, could be a stage win for these two.
Big effort. Schurter looks over his shoulder and sees the damage, and it is extensive. Foster, head down, shoulders tight. He's driving towards the top of this steep climb. Absolutely devastating attack here from Scots Ram, putting their rivals to the sword up the climb.
Well, they got them at 6s and 7. Fumic, finally, this is the bigger explosion. He's shown cracks all the way through the last 20 kilometres or so. But this hill and that acceleration by Scott Stram, it's really got him in trouble. And Avancini now waiting, coaxing Fumic over the top. Cross Spur getting together in front of them.
Isn't this just the incredible dynamic of a team sport? These two well-matched riders, and the best supreme rider in the world, Nino Schurter, allowing his younger novice partner in the Absa Cape Epic to do the work up front.
Nino Schurter really has met his match. He's got a partner that's more than capable, and not only more than capable, he's leading the way. He is actually taking the initiative here. Schurter can rely on him to do some work. No doubt he'll come round and just further that advantage that they have.
Oh, Cross Spur behind them, settling into a good rhythm now. The gap opened up quite quickly, a really violent acceleration. But now those riders have found their rhythm, Mantacon and Sink, and they're starting to just level that gap off and hoping they can ride a good team's time trial back into the wheel and have a crack at the stage win. But Schurter and Forster, the Scotch Fram team, they said this is the moment where we're going to get the stage victory.
Yeah, they've made a very, very big effort here. There is Cross Spur, and this is Avancini and Fumic. Fumic is suffering terribly here. Avancini's rolled back just to lead him up this very steep climb, and behind them Trek Sella San Marco.
Well, you can see the gaps. It was 100 metres back to Cross Spur, another 50 metres back to Cannondale, and then another 25 metres back to Sella San Marco. So the gap's small between the chasing groups, but Schurter and Forster really opening up the burners now.
It's one of those things in racing, when they sense weakness, they'll put themselves right on the limit. So Scott Stram on the limit, and Cannondale Factory Racing on the limit is clearly at the moment two different speeds totally.
Yeah, Cross Spur now just taking turns. Andres Sink and Sergio Mantacon Gutierrez sharing the workload as they try and close that gap on this descent.
Andres Sink, having done a Tour de France, he knows all about drafting and all about the tactics and exactly where to sit behind the rider. So he'll be making you'll be putting that to good use.
I'll be enjoying these more open sections of Fire Road as well to try and get that big gear wound up and get down and get aero, use every advantage, try and fight their way back on to this pairing. It's now Nino Schurter on the front, Lars Forster just taking on a little bit of a drink.
And now behind them, the Scots Ram team has that attack guaranteed them or brought them within touching distance of a stage win here. We'll see what the Cross Spur guys can do behind them if they can close this down. There's still a way to go though. 20 odd minutes perhaps of riding and lots of single track, but they're in the prime position.
Well, Nino will really be enjoying this moment because we saw Team Cannondale attack through the final water point. They didn't need to stop, all the other teams did, and they really had Forster and Schurter under pressure to chase back on. So Nino will be really enjoying now that he's got them on the back foot and forcing them to chase all the way into the finish.
And this is where it counts. It doesn't count to be on the back foot or on the front foot halfway through the stage, but it really starts to matter when they're reaching the final 20 kilometres, the final 10 kilometres of the stage.
And you had the impression that Scots Ram were just looking at all the others throughout the stage, never making big attacks, just letting the course do its work, you know, that race of attrition, letting it do the damage to the other riders, and just waiting till late on to choose their moment and really open up.
Little flick from Mantikon Gutierrez saying to Andre Sink, your turn on the front, let's keep working, we might bring this back, you never know. Well, Fumich is looking a little better, but they are losing time all the way. Avancini and Fumich, Cannondale Factory Racing.
Now they're really close to home at the moment. They're within 10 kilometres, and they may even be able to hear the announcer. They can smell home, but that doesn't give them any better feeling. These pair here, they know what they've got to do. They've got the work cut out. They have to close that gap to Scots Ram. Doesn't look like it's that easy. Scots Ram really have put the hammer down, and they've got their ears pinned back.
Absolutely nailing it again, Scots Ram. Lars Forster in his first Absa Cape Epic as they drop into some beautiful single track here on Paul Kluwer. Paul Kluwer Farm, a wonderful mountain bike haven. All this area, in fact, Tandy Farm, Lebanon trails, Paul Kluwer and Oak Valley is a mecca for mountain biking.
And this is the natural habit, even though it's not their home country, it's the natural habitat for the Swiss riders, both technically adept, some of the best bike handlers in the world, the single track section. Even though a lot of them have are riding it completely blind, they just have that ability to just gain half a second each corner. And this is where they will gain an even bigger advantage over the cross spur chasers.
So hard they're going. I mean, you can see they just lose the trail a moment, a fraction there, but it doesn't retard their progress one bit.
Physically, they're clearly the strongest riders in the race, and they're also technically highly adept. So this is really the time that they can put in maximum effort, and it's when it really counts. There's no point in putting in a 100% effort halfway through the stage where it doesn't really count, where the riders can follow the wheel. Now they've got a gap. This is where it really makes a difference.
And there you can see visibly the gap to cross spur over one of the many A-frames they'll find on these trails, and into Oak Valley. I think this is the transition into the Oak Valley trails.
It's all out in the open now. They'll be able to see exactly where they're going, where the riders are, and what the gap is, and they'll be doing those mental calculations to see how much time they've got to make up.
Close the gap. What do you reckon, Robbie?
I don't think so. I'm going to be realistic here and think once these two have gone, we saw what they did in the prologue, and now it's into time trial mode, and Nino and Lars giving it absolutely everything they've got. And I think history will tell us once Nino gets in a situation like this, he doesn't get caught.
No,
I'd like to build the excitement and say, yes, there's still a chance. But no, I think they're racing for second.
I think if you're a chasing group, what the best tactic you can adopt is just keep it steady, stay as on it as you possibly can. Think about accelerating, making uptime on Nino Schurter. You know that Nino Schurter and Lars Forster are riding at their limit. They're riding at 100%, which means that the chasers have to ride at 105%, which the cracks start to show after 100%, and not just on the body and physiologically, but also on taking some risks around the corners. And when there is risk, there is also the possibility of puncturing or having issues with the bike.
Mantikon and Singh doing a great job, and they're riding really, really well, but you can just see that the pace between the two teams a little bit different, just a little bit quicker, that of the Scots-Ram combination, and the gap out to over 20 seconds and inside the final 5 kilometres. They will not get caught. It was a great ride from these two after having a horror day yesterday.
Yeah, they are busy putting together a fantastic day that'll see them climb appreciably up the standings, bearing in mind what is happening behind them. The likes of Carl Platt and Alban Lecata having a tough day. They're over 8 minutes down, and Kulhavi and Gaze are even further back, and they will be way back in the field, and they were in 3rd place overall at the start of the day. So big changes in the GC, except right at the top, because the yellow jerseys are dominating again.
It's not only a blow on time, but it's also a psychological blow. If Schurter and Forster can put a little bit more time in, it just shows once again who the strongest team is in the race.
Well, they're just showing they've got everything under control. Look, they're out of sight around this corner. The gap is out to over 20 seconds. The gap between Crossbow and Cannondale is around 10 seconds at the moment. So Avancini and Fumic doing well to limit the damage to loss to those riders, although not much of a concern after Cross lost an hour yesterday, but they are, well, I was going to say seeing these riders go further away. The problem is they're not seeing them. They've ridden out of sight.
Absolutely. Another little A-frame. The motorbike gets over safely. It's always a slight worry. It's slightly heavier than the bikes, and sweeping into the single track. They'll drop down into a wonderful spiny single track through the forest there.
A great snapshot of exactly what's going on in the race, all in one frame. You can see the Scots Ram guys way out front, over a 20-second gap over this pair, Crossbow, and 5 to 10 seconds back, Cannondale Factory Racing.
Well, Fumic will feel a little energized knowing what's coming. He loves these trails. He loves the single track. Pops over, but they've got a lot of work to do.
Cannondale Factory Racing do have the rabbit up, the hare out at front. They've got someone they can see. They've got the Crossbow team. That is a slight psychological advantage, but they still know that not only have they got to catch them, they've got to catch Scots Ram. And I think they've probably accepted by now that's not going to happen.
Yeah, so we might lose images every now and again here. This part of the world, incidentally, is well, it produces 60% of South Africa's apple crop, and 40% of all that gets exported all over the world. So wherever you are, you might be eating a Granny Smith or a Golden Delicious. It may well have had its origins in these very orchards through which Nino Schurter and Lars Forster are drilling it for Scots Ram here towards the finish of stage 2.
If anyone's been following this race for a few years, and certainly you would need to be following it for a decade, you'll remember Nino Schurter's first attempt at this race, his first time, and this was exactly the day that he came undone on the stage. The two of them, when he rode with his fellow countrymen, had an absolute explosion on this section in the single track. We thought that they were leading, and then suddenly they just
stopped.
Absolutely
they
stopped.
Stopped dead.
We thought that maybe they'd had a puncture, and they very eloquently explained that it wasn't a puncture. It was, in fact, it was, but in each leg.
Yes.
They pointed very carefully to each leg, saying, "I had a puncture here and I had a puncture here." And no doubt, it's clear that Nino Schurter has matured into a very handy stage racer.
And that was within 2 or 3 kilometers of the finish. It really was dramatic. It was incredible scene. Florian Vogel?
Florian Vogel was his teammate at the time. And this was back in 2010. Still managed to continue and finished creditable 13th, laying the foundation for today, in fact.
Years to come, yeah.
Well, that's how you build experience, by making mistakes and learning from them. And you only find your limits by going over them now and again.
Quick glance over the shoulder there from Ching to see what the gap is, and it's closing. Here comes Fumic and Avancini. We may have a chase on for second place here. As I said, he loves these trails. He knows them well, probably a lot better than the 2 men ahead of him.
Yeah, if he knows the trails, that's a massive advantage running in towards the finish here on the single track. And it looks like Cannondale are going to get themselves back on terms with the Cross Spur team, but certainly Scots Ram, they are off into the distance, and the next place that the other riders will see them is at the podium ceremony.
Yeah, they spent a long time in this part of the world, the Cannondale Factory Racing, at the start of the year. They do a lot of the races ahead of the Absa Cape Epic, and they come and train and scout and do all the hard work that puts them in the shape to come and race this at the sharp end.
That is our leaders there through the forest, the camera e-bike behind them.
Tom Deitch on that from Team Bulls, and quick glance. They're going so fast, it's a blur.
Oh, it's Nino leading Forster through this section. Just brilliant looking trails here in Oak Valley. I'm looking forward to, after the broadcast, getting out and having a roll around as Oh, the race using plenty of the trails, but I'll go out the opposite direction.
Yeah, there's so many here. You won't have a problem. You'll be able to explore beautifully here.
Network of trails, and you get if anyone's not getting FOMO up until now, they certainly will. Look at the speed they're going at. It's like watching a scene from Star Wars. Some Jedi Knights flying through the trees.
Pop,
This
flying
is the
over.
best
Wow.
in the world.
Well, they've got the power and they've got the skills. Distance the rest of the field on the uphill, but all through this section, they're just going further and further away from the cross spur team, and it's going to be a tough ask for Cannondale to get their wheels in front of the cross riders through all this single trail.
They're coming over the top here, and they are coming into the finish here. There's a little bit of a single track. They'll hook a left over a bridge and onto the field. And Scots Ram Mountain Biking have done another peach of a job here in stage 2. Here they go onto the field. No sprint finish because that attack, that devastating attack on Paul Kluwer, and it's Nino Schurter and his partner Lars Forster who make it 3 out of 3. And another stamp of authority on the Absa Cape Epic in 2019 from this Swiss super pair.
They could really enjoy that victory. They could, after the last corner, they could sit up and just salute. Didn't have to scrap it for a stage win. Always a great luxury if you're a pro bike rider. You can absolutely savor that moment.
And here come the second group. That's the third group. This is the second pair. Andres Sink and Sergio Mancon Gutierrez. They are going to take second place. What a great day for the cross spur men. And behind them, Cannondale Factory Racing in third place on the podium once again, but they've lost a little bit more time to the Scots Ram mountain bike pair.
And certainly a good effort for them to catch the cross spur pair, and still a bit of morale at the end. They were still very much cohesive as a team, and that's a good sign.
That's a great ride from the cross spur pairing of Mancon and Sink.
Well, it's all drama and excitement here down at the finish at Oak Valley. And Laura is down in the paddock chatting to and catching up with some of the riders.
Just when we are expecting a bunch of sprints, this team, you know them from these days, they did a winning move, so congratulations guys. Lars, wow, what a move.
Yeah, it was nice. It wasn't planned. It wasn't planned like this, but I think after the last feed zone, we wanted to win.
It was not easy. We saw you very strong. A few attacks from the rivals. You were always closing the gap. So this is like actually a good thing for you.
Yeah, it was a tough battle. But yeah, we always felt comfortable, and we were able to control the race. And yeah, it's amazing to have actually a hat trick now. 3 in a row. It's amazing.
We actually saw you having some fun in the Land Rover technical zone with a couple of wheelies.
Yeah, it was a fun track. Some bits were a bit sandy, that was difficult, but yeah, there were some nice trails, and it was nice also to come in here to those nice trails here.
How does it feel to have 3 stage victories already in 3 days, Lars?
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah, I really didn't expect that. But I was thinking I can do good, but this good, I'm happy. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Your statistic just got better.
Okay, another team that is very happy with the result is Team Cross. Yesterday they lost almost an hour because of a mechanical. So let's try to speak with Sergio. Sergio is here. Oops. Sergio. Hola. We are doing this in English. Ah, look. So Sergio, yesterday you lost around an hour with a mechanical, and today you did a great job. It was planned this morning?
Yeah, exactly. In the prologue we had a pretty good feeling, me and Chinky, my teammate. Yesterday, unfortunately, we had a mechanical problem, so we lose many times. The overall is finished for us, so we just finished our strategy. Now we will find the stage winning. And today we were very close, and we will try because we have a lot of confidence in ourselves because we felt pretty good, and next day we will fight for a stage winning.
And we saw you trying to attack a couple of times. Was it difficult to leave behind these guys, also Nino and Lars?
Yeah, we tried to did a small gap because I know they have a good fight for for the overall. Probably we have our opportunity trying to do ourselves, but it wasn't successful. So we arrived to the final climb, four couples together. The Scott guys were stronger than us, but we were pretty close, and for sure we will have another opportunity next days.
Now you are more confident for the upcoming days.
Yeah, no, we know we can fight for the winning. Also, we know there are another strong couples, and they will have also an opportunity, but we will try, we will fight.
Thank you. Congratulations for the good job. Thanks.
Do you want to follow?
So we are going to try to move now. The third team arriving at the finish line. The team with the German and Brazilian riders. So let's hear what they have to say about today. Hi. So how was it today? The stage, third place for you, which is very good. So how was the feeling?
No, we had a great day. Another one with a podium. It's always nice to end up on a podium, and it was, I would say, kind of also intense because there were a lot of teams that wanted to escape early doors, and we were lucky. We were kind of in control and tried to keep up with the yellow jersey, don't lose too much, and then was kind of. There were some guys going for the stage win, like the cross guys and some other guys, other teams, and but we tried to. Ride controlled, and in the end we were just 10 k's before the finish. We were all together, and there was one attack from the Scott boys, and in this moment we couldn't follow, but in the end we didn't lose too much time. Another podium, happy. We're on plan still.
Is it possible that we saw you suffering a little bit today, or you were saving some energy?
Well, it's called the hardest mountain bike race in the world, you know, so of course I'm suffering like everyone else, but yeah, I mean, today was another intense day, you know, when someone goes for the win, it's quite intense, and sometimes, you know, I mean, my legs, they tell me if I can go or not, but I'm already looking forward, you know, there's 5 more heavy stages, and maybe it's good for me that I kind of pulled the handbrake today, and who knows, maybe it's going to play in my cards the next days.
Thank you. And Enrique, how was that last climb where the winning move was made?
Towards the end was a quite heavy stage, I must say. And towards the end, you know, the guys made the move. It was quite a solid move by then. And they got like a small gap. We discussed it before, you know. We tried to ride still quite consistent, you know, during the stage. I think we managed to do that. On the last climb, you know, as Manny mentioned, he felt like would be clever thinking about the week to hold back a little bit, because otherwise we would need to go proper into the hut box. And was rolling quite well on the flat parts today, so we got the gap on the climb, but I think we managed to keep the gap during the final 6-7 Ks. So I mean, was okay, you know, another podium. Was a really good day of racing today, I must say, you know. Everyone was just cracking on, was quiet there, everyone was racing hard. There were some moves, you know, on the race. I think was a good thing, you know. I was just happy to be there, just happy to be racing. The cross guys did a really good race today. Scott won again, and was, I would say, well deserved for their performance today. And I think we also deserve it to be on the podium today.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Okay, so let's see if we have some people around here. We see the red jersey team here. Let's gonna see what they have to tell us. Hello. How are you? How was today? We saw you in the chase group. So how was that?
Yeah, that was just chasing the whole day. It was quite difficult, but we had some strong guys with us, like the Bulls, Simon and Urs, and then Geismeier, and I'm not sure his partner's name. But yeah, they were driving it hard. Yeah, it was quite frustrating because we were going pretty much the same pace. We just couldn't get there. But yeah, a good day overall. It was quite nice riding these single tracks. We do went to Wales, so that was quite a nice way to end the day.
What about for you, Alan? And that last climb, we saw the winning move. Was it that hard as we saw on TV?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, at the end of the stage, it's just survival of the fittest. I think that's where, you know, sort of trying to make the decision of how deep you actually want to go. I mean, it's still a long way to the finish, and I think if you empty your tank completely to go with the move, it's maybe a bit risky. You know, there's still a long way to go, so you know, you need to sort of conserve the body a bit, and I gave it my all as much as I could, and I just rewrote smart to the finish, and I'm happy with the overall so far.
Thank you. Good luck tomorrow, guys. Thank you. So, well, we heard about the main protagonist of today. We are back to the studio now.
Thanks very much to Lara getting the views of all our riders out there. Robbie, I mean, the interesting thing there was Canada Factory Racing saying they didn't want to go too hard up that climb because of the duration of the week. It looked for me as though Manuel couldn't really go any harder than he was going.
We saw Manuel find his limits on a number of occasions today, you know, losing the wheel and having to claw his way back. And you know, when it gets to that point in the race, you're not thinking about, I might save something for the next day. As the stage winner's on the line, it's all going down. That's everything that he had at the time. But it's a pretty good sign. They weren't that far behind. They managed to ride their way back onto the wheels of the Cross Spur team and finish on the podium. So you know, it's a great result. And I think they can be really happy with how it turned out. And I did have to have a bit of a laugh with Matt Beer's comment talking about the other team. Yeah, and we had the other team, and he had a bit of a Sagan moment. And the other guy, I don't know his name.
Yeah, well, they were 30 seconds back, Avancini and Fumic, a second behind the Cross Spur team. And then Samuele Porro and Damiano Ferraro, the Trekkies, Trek Celis and Marco, had another good day, 1:50 down. Heineck and Peter Faragao at 2:52 down, coming in 5th place. Urstrup and Simon Stipjan 2:54 just behind them, and Beers and Hatherley in 7th place today, 3:35 down. Gesman Kess, that was the other partner, the other man, Jochen Kess and Daniel Gesman, 3:49 down. And Christoph Sauser and Simon Andreasen, they were in the next group, 6:28 down. No sign of Harvey and Gaze. Things seem to have exploded rather spectacularly there today.
Well, it certainly doesn't look good for them to lose that much time and to not even be in yet. Means that things will have to change in the Specialized Factory Racing camp. With 3 teams in the race, it's at least they've got some cards to play. So it's interesting to see what they'll put a lot of faith in the Specialized Foundation NAD team. Hathley and Beers are having a great day. They were able to really show their talents today. No mechanicals, no major issues, and the week's still a long way to go. And just going back to that remark that Cannondale Factory Racing guys were talking about there, it seemed like they were putting on a bit of a brave face, and very often with the athletes, they want to keep positive. They want to keep looking at the bright side of things. They've only lost 30 seconds today. They only let the last break go, and they keep themselves in the game. It stands them in good stead.
Right. There we go. So let's have a quick look at the standings on the men's classification in the battle for the yellow jersey. Scots Ram Mountain Bike are the undoubted kings of this race at the moment, regardless of comments made at the end of yesterday's stage. Nino Schurter and Lars Forster are bossing this race. No question about that at the moment. And everyone else is chasing. And Sergio Mantagon and his partner Andreas Schink, they've done really nicely because they put themselves right back in the frame after losing an hour yesterday. And then Avancini and Fumic of Cannondale Factory Racing losing 30 seconds today. Riders coming in as we go back to the women's race, and this is the battle for the orange jersey, which is firmly on the shoulders of Anna van der Breggen and her partner Annika Langvall. And well, it looks like they when last we saw them, they were just keeping their powder dry, sitting behind a Cross Spur. They look as though they've decided to open it up a bit.
Well, either opened it up or maybe Cross Spur off in front of them, but I highly doubt it. I think the MO of this team has been sort of just let everybody reach their limit, and then we'll go up a gear and take off in search of the stage win. And Annika, she's not one to sit back and gift stage wins to other teams. She likes to go to the maximum every day. And she actually looked like she'd overcooked it a little bit yesterday when we got post-finish and Laura interviewed Annika. She was flat out sitting against that backdrop and really breathing heavily, while Anna was standing, smiling, explaining But obviously, recovery has been good for Annika Langvall, and she's up there just driving it again on this stage too.
The riders have talked about, when they put in a big effort the day before, that the morning is a struggle for them. They really struggle to get going in the morning with those painful legs, just going just a little bit too deep. It takes them a bit of time to get going, and perhaps that was what this morning was about for Annika Langvall. They were with the Crossbow guys for quite a while. And up until the 61 kilometer mark, in fact, we saw them all together. There was seconds of single track before the base of Old Hohook Pass in Bot River. At that 61 kilometer mark, they were together. And at the top of the climb at the checkpoint 4 in Lebanon, at the water point, they had already gained 1 minute 30 on Cross Spur. So the race is on. Once again, they look set for a stage win.
A little cautiously round the bend there for Anna van der Breggen. They've got a couple of men as their pilot fish just tailing on there. Now they're coming to this rather steep section as they close in on Paul Kluwer and Oak Valley and Tundi and Lebanon.
So Annika and Anna have passed through the final water point at Lebanon after 75 kilometres. 3 hours and 39 to get through that point, and they have a 1 minute 30 lead on the Cross team. So they have left them behind, gone on the attack, and on that steep section through that incinerated forest we saw earlier, where we saw Fumic having a bit of trouble following the train.
Now we're back to Anna van der Breggen's natural habitat. The smoother the road for her, the better. She can put the power down and gain the advantage. Perhaps a little bit on the back foot on the single track, not quite used to the technical nature of mountain biking yet, not quite as much as the likes of Maya Waszkowska and Ariane Luti, but certainly making back the time where she can.
Absolutely incredible to come into the toughest, as you heard Manuel Fumic say, this is the toughest mountain bike race in the world. To step into it straight off the road. A week earlier, she and Annika Langvall were racing the Strade Bianchi. They then flew out on Sunday, arrived in South Africa, and prepared for this race. So it's some achievement. She's a truly pedigreed rider. There's no question about it.
And highly adaptable to race at the level of Strade Bianchi. This is the best road race, one of the best road riders, best road races in the world, most important, and the best road riders. And to jump on a fat tire bike from a drop handlebar bike is a bit of an adaptation, especially at that level of the sport, and they've done pretty well.
I mean, you know, Robbie, we saw Peter Sagan racing or trying to ride the Olympics. I mean, he had a mechanical, so that cost him. But you know, on the cross country, we're seeing, you know, Anna van der Breggen, the world road race champion, just step over here. Who of those men do you reckon? I mean, obviously Sagan has a pedigree as a mountain biker, but who else could step in here as a current rider?
I think at the moment a guy definitely with very good bike handling skills and an incredible engine, and a man in hot form at the moment is the Frenchman Julien Alaphilippe. I think he would be a guy who could cross over really successfully to off-road racing.
Right, let's break for that. Let's go to our podium presentation, and it's taking place right here on the field at Oak Valley. And well, they've been on the podium every day. Cannondale Factory Racing, Manuel Fumic and Henri Cavancini.
Like you said, it's a carbon copy of the prologue. First, second and third. Just the second and third are swapped over.
Well, this course doesn't lie, does it? You come in with a certain form, and this course finds everybody out.
Notice how, well, a day ago, Henri Cavancini was not smiling one bit. Well, it's Sergio Mantecan Gutierrez on the left, Henri Cinco on the right of Cross Spur. Good day for them on the podium in the prologue and third place. They're in second place on stage 2 after a really tough day on stage 1. Third day in a row for Team Scots Stram Mountain Bike Racing. Lars Forster, the European champion, the world champion alongside him, and a team that are in absolutely red hot form after 3 days of this event.
They've certainly hit their stride, and I don't want to read too much into it, but this time we've got Nina and Enrique standing next to each other, whereas yesterday they looked like they were as far apart as they possibly could get.
Yeah, and Enrique is smiling today, which he wasn't yesterday. And yep, he gave credit to Scots in his post-race interview, saying, yep, they were the strongest today and they deserved the win. But we also deserve to be on the podium, he said. So
he's quite right.
Yep, they did. They worked really hard and they found themselves onto the third step of the podium. So our top three on today's stage. And very shortly I'll be seeing the handover of that yellow jersey once again to Scots Mountain Biking. And that's all taking place here. Good to see people, a nice crowd out today. It's holiday time, although it's not a public holiday today in South Africa. That is coming this week on Thursday, but it is schools on holiday, so an opportunity for families to come and enjoy the very best mountain bikers in the world in this beautiful environment. Yep, they haven't missed a beat yet. Lars Foster and Nino Schurter.
No doubt, just the yellow jersey wearers having won 3 of the 3 stages. And today, they're not quite taking it as much of an advantage as previous days. They only got 30 seconds on their rivals, and this does extend their overall GC lead to 4 minutes and 4 seconds over Cannondale Factory Racing. And Trek Salas and Marco also seem to be rising up the leaderboard. They've risen up 1 more place today to 3rd place. Trek Salas and Marcos, Ferrara and Poro, 8 minutes and 16 back, ominously moving up.
Very, very canny riders, the Italians. There's the yellow jerseys once more here at the Absa Cape Epic in 2019. Foster and Schurter, dominant once more. Not the last you'll see of them, that's for sure. Back on the trails, here are Anna Gelangwell and Anna van der Breggen, the race leaders in the women's category, in the orange jerseys, which denotes the women's race leaders, green for the mixed, blue for the Dimension Data Masters, and purple for the Grand Masters, and a couple of special jerseys as well. The Xaro have a green, slightly luminous green jersey. Now, this is where it gets tricky. They've got to try and get themselves past the slower men here. That rider just rolling into the dirt, and well, he's saying, well, I'll let them pass, but who are you guys? And those 2 riders behind saying, we are hitched onto this train of Investec Songo Specialized. We are staying with them. Well, they have opened a gap of over a minute on the Crossbow team, having ridden just behind Ariane Luti and Maja Wojtowska, who we're with right now. That's Wojtowska at the back and Ariane Luti on the front, on the single tracks, and on the bike of Stefan Sam. And Wojtowska and Luti about a minute back and chasing, but they've got work to do to catch this pair. But if they are to make any ground, it might be in this little section here for Van der Breggen and Langveld get held up by some of the slow riders around them.
Oh, well, there's some good sportsmanship there, letting the riders past. No doubt Annika will have shouted out to the riders in front, and they'll be acutely aware of a big race going on.
Yeah, they'll make their presence felt, that's for sure, and heard.
I have to be careful not to get too split up. This is a technical section for Anna van der Breggen. Even though it's a climb, it's a bit of effort. It's an engine climb as much as it is a technical climb. Annika Langveld needs to be careful not to stretch the gap too much.
Looking just across
there's
that
the gap
valley on the climb here. And the cross-spur riders will be able to look across and see those orange leaders' jerseys riding off into the distance on this switchback climb.
Sometimes the orange jerseys might not be spottable, but one thing that is very spottable is the helicopter that'll be watching these 2. Crossbow will see exactly where that chopper's hovering, and then they'll know how far ahead they are. The time checks say 1 minute 30 at the last time check at the 75 kilometer mark. It may have extended now with this climb.
Annika Langveld showing her power and strength here ahead of Anna van der Breggen. If anywhere these 2 are not quite matched, it's in this sort of terrain. But they are a combination that are proving to be unstoppable at the moment. And everything that Maja Wojtowska and Ariane Luti throw at them, it's just not good enough just at the moment. They're in second place. Candice Lill and Ariane Morat, the Team Summitfin combination, were third overall. We haven't seen them much at all today.
A little update on them as you speak. So they are riding at around 6 minutes 50 behind was the time check as they came through the final water point with 15 kilometres to go. So they're about 5 minutes 20 behind the Crossbow team at that water point. Crossbow, of course, they were 1.5 minutes behind at the last water point.
Good efforts from Summitfin to hold on to that GC for third spot. They'll be looking to keep that podium. It seems to be the pecking order has been established that Investec Songhai Specialized seem to be the strongest team watt for watt, with Crossbow Racing the next best. Summitfin looking to consolidate that third spot for sure.
It looks to me like the team of Langval and Van der Breggen, they really wanted to just tempo a little bit today, not go on the attack for so long. Yesterday they spent most of the race off the front and really going hard and opening up a really big gap. Today they've waited a lot longer to offload the last of their rivals, so a little bit more of a measured performance today, but no less dominant.
Yeah, absolutely. As that lead increases, so they will keep those attacks until a little bit later and later, and just turn the screw slowly but surely as they plot their way towards Val de Vie. Stellenbosch is still to come, of course, after 3 days in this beautiful part of the world, the Elgin Oak Valley, the Grabo Elgin Valley.
Certainly is a mountain biker's playground, and so a relatively short stage compared to yesterday at 90 kilometers. Yesterday's was 112, and the riders will have looked at both stages, and especially at the top end of the field with Annika Langval and Anna van der Breggen, they'll have noticed that yesterday's stage might have been a better opportunity to take out big time. If you look at the nature of the stage and the difficulty, and in fact you could just go down the top 10 results. Yesterday from 1st to 10th space, the difference was 13 minutes and 15 seconds, and today the difference between 1st and 10th in the men's is only 6 minutes and 44 seconds. So clearly either a very difficult day yesterday, and today feel a little bit more bunched up, indicative of how hard the course was yesterday.
Absolutely. And if you've spent close on 10 hours, and there were riders the longest time yesterday, 9 hours and 54 on the very first long day of the race, it gives you an indication of just how tough your week is going to be for those teams.
Credit yesterday to a lot of the amateur teams who did really well to finish, and only a small handful of dropouts. We don't like to talk about it. It's almost a terrible thing that you've come all the way to South Africa, Western Cape, and having to leave the race, but it's certainly a very good performance from every single rider out there yesterday to make it through.
Yeah, it's the nature of the sport, though. It does happen, but I think only 5 riders, as far as we could work out, not actually starting this morning, which is a remarkable tribute to the strength and the preparedness of all the riders to get themselves in shape. And I think there was every indication when the Absa Cape Epic announced the route for 2019 that it was going to be among the very toughest of the last 16 years. Short in distance, 630 kilometers, but long in climbing. 16,250 meters of climbing.
And certainly a very concentrated course compared to previous years. Previous years we had quite a few open roads, and the trail networks around the Western Cape weren't quite as established. We've had some really hard work going on between the landowners and the advocacy, the trail advocacies, and it's definitely a mountain biker's heaven in the Western Cape. Around Cape Town, around this region over here, we've got amazing selection of trails, and truly sport has developed massively in the last 15 years in the history of the race.
Yeah, I mean, and the sport in South Africa, thanks to this very race, the Absa Cape Epic, has just ballooned. It's exploded with stage races, with trail networks being built all over the country, and this race was the start of all that. It created the event that people wanted to come and ride, and everyone has followed suit. As we here at the finish, you just seen Joaquim Rodriguez and Jose Amida roll into the finish, the Dimension Data Masters leaders. Loud screeches they finished. Exuberance would be their second name. Meanwhile, we're with the second team here. That's the cross spur pair of Arjan Luti, a 3-time former winner with Annika Langveld. And Arjan just signaling to those riders to move away, or go ahead, or just out the way. Maja Wojtowska, the Polish champion, behind her.
Looks like Arjan setting the pace for Maja, and it's a good tactic. Arjan certainly has got a lot of experience with pacing herself at this race. She'll know exactly where to put in a maximum effort and where just to keep up the tempo, limit the losses. They're communicating very well with her partner when she needs just a bit of help at the front to create a bit of get into the draft, to have a slight so-called respite behind the rider. Makes a big difference sharing the load. Really impressed with the vibe between these two, the relationship. It's a new pairing, and Maja Wojtowska is a newbie at the Absa Cape, not a newbie at mountain biking certainly, and exciting to see how this relationship has developed.
Absolutely not. A former world champion, one of the greats of the sport, 2 silver medals at the Olympic Games. So our masters are in, that I mentioned, data masters leaders, Joaquim Rodriguez and Jose Amida. Let's go down to Laura in the paddock down here.
So we have here the winners of the Masters category. They mentioned that Masters category, Joaquim Rodriguez and Jose Hermida. Look how tired they are. We are going to talk with Jose. Hermi, please tell us how was today. Purito looks tired. What happened?
Oh, just theater. He's a good actor. In Spain, we have a good actors in Hollywood, and looks like he wants to start a new career. No, well, today, yesterday we pushed quite hard to get a big gap in the overall, and then obviously we have to feel it the day after. And well, actually, he just feel it a little bit in the last 10Ks, and it was a special course for me also, because I like this kind of up and down single trails, and in this part is where I move like a snake, and for Purito obviously it's a little bit more harder. I hope it's not going to be many steep climbs on the asphalt, because then it's going to be me who is going to suffer. But today, of course, it was my ground, my garden, and then it was more or less easy to survive for me, and for him it was a little bit tough. But anyway, we keep a good advantage in our competitors, and I think we increase the gap, so day by day it's going to be fun.
And in that changeable terrain, Purito was able to follow you. How did you work together?
Well, it's easy to work with him because we have a good tempo together. The shape is more or less the same. Obviously, when the stage gets longer and longer, and when you get tired, then you start to make mistakes, even in the just technical parts, really easy in the corners. And for me, it's much easier. This is my job from the last 20 years. But we work pretty good, and we talk a lot during the race, even if it doesn't look like. But that's the key point, I think, to talk to each other, to be honest, and hey, Puro, I feel bad, or Hermi, I feel bad, and then we slow down and we just try to make our tempo, and then in some part we make some jokes to relax a little bit the tempo, and that's it. That's the secret.
Thank you. Congratulations, guys.
Thanks a lot, boys. See you tomorrow.
Former world champion,
back to the studio now.
Jose Amida, former world champion, there chatting with Laura and Purito, who doesn't speak much English, so Jose doesn't need too many invitations to do the talking, I don't think.
No, he tells a good story and has a great turn of phrase as well. He said we got on the single track, and Purito has a little bit more difficult because I go and move like a snake through the single track.
Lovely.
And, so yeah, he has all the skills, and he's really still guiding Purito Rodriguez in. Of course, a fantastic former road professional, finished on the podium in Grand Tours, won one-day classics. But when it gets on the dirt and a bit technical, then he's a little bit out of his element, but still comfortably leading the Masters division, and another stage win for those guys.
Absolutely good to see them. And now we're with Langveld and Van der Breggen on that nasty long drag up over the crest of the hill from Paul Kluwe into Oak Valley's lands, but they're keeping a very steady tempo here. Van der Breggen and Langveld, yeah, she's setting the pace.
Very interesting to see what their body language is at the finish. Yesterday actually, we had a very big difference in how they appeared. Annika was sitting down, and Anna was pretty casual. It was as if she'd just ridden around to the shops. But today might be a bit of an easier today, a slightly less challenging stage. We've got certainly a shorter stage, and the terrain, we expected the terrain to be a bit sandier, a bit rockier, but definitely yesterday was a bit more of a course of attrition, and today a consolidation course for these two.
Well, although they're off the front again, I think Annika's riding much more within herself.
Right, well, we're with Thomas Dietsch on the e-bike, the media bike there, and he's on the wheel of Annika Langveld and Anna van der Breggen, and I think we might be able to actually hear from the Frenchman, Thomas Dietsch, to tell us how steep is that hill. It looks very tough.
It's the last climb from the race. It's 5 kilometers before the finish.
A bit of a problem because you need the helicopter to have some communication with them, but it's a little bit too close to hear exactly what Thomas is saying. Needless to say, we don't need to be told it is really steep, and this angle from Thomas's bike tells us, or it did tell us how steep it was, that hill. It is a real grind, and these riders make it look fairly comfortable to ride, but can you imagine what it's going to be like for the back of the field as they get towards the finish today?
Well, bit of an update from our hyenas, of course. They sweep the course, they come in with the last riders. They've just gone through the 28 kilometre marker. So they are long way behind,
Yeah, they do an incredible job. Rob Vogel.
Yesterday were the people still coming in, riders still coming in after 10 hours of riding, and some riders missing the time cut, they're coming in with broken equipment, still pushing on, and of course they may stay in the race and complete the stages, but they will not be officially classified as finishers.
The beautiful lands, some of them are devastated by the fire that swept through this part of the world, and it really has made it very, very stark, the dark fires. Groenlandberg is the big mountain. They're not looking at it from that angle, but it's to the right of the riders now, and it's a mountain they will be visiting later in the week. Neil Gardner, the Grand Dame of the Absa Cape Epic.
Yeah, we've got some great efforts of the route designers and the route team. Groenlandberg is really a highlight. It's the Grand Dame of the race, and which is the highest point of the entire week, in fact over 1,000 meters. And if you look at the profile, very jagged shark's tooth profile. Definitely a scary thing for the riders. Yeah, they'll have their stickers on their top tubes. They have a route profile sticker, and then they can know more or less where they are on the stage, and helps them pace themselves mentally and also physically. They can plan their nutrition. Some of the more fastidious riders will even write what kind of nutrition they've got to take at each point. Just a bit of a reminder, an extra preparation.
Well, this gives you a good indication of how steep this final climb is. You look at the tiny little gear that they're on, the number of pedal revolutions they're doing, but the slow speed they're moving at. So really quite a high cadence, but a very low speed. And I'd say that final hill has got to be getting up around the 18-20%.
Maja Rostovska on the front, and Ariane Luti of Crossbow, a teammate, just sitting on a wheel, focused on that to get them to the top. Meanwhile, they're over the top. Langveld and van der Breggen on the final stretch of Tar Road, Dirt Road, beg your pardon. They'll hook into the single track very shortly and fly home through these beautiful trails here at Oak Valley.
Langveld's favourite position, putting her hands on the top of her suspension fork, getting herself into just a bit more of an aero position, reducing her frontal area and pushing hard. This is her trademark position. It's definitely earned her a number of minutes in if you add them all up over the 5 or 4 victories that she's had, as she seeks for her 5th and record victory.
5 years ago, she was in the top 6 of the World Time Trial Championships on the road. She did ride in Innsbruck last year in the Road Worlds. It's something that she's now joined up with Bulls Dolmans in the strongest of the Women's World Tour teams, and will be riding a few more races with him because the World Cup starts so late this year in May, so there's the opportunity for her to ride a few races. But her real focus is, of course, the mountain bike and to try and regain that world title.
There's nothing like a road team could really do with her services. I'm sure they're welcoming her into the fold, and a big engine like that is always a useful addition to any road team.
Oh, absolutely it is. Here we're seeing third place on the trail, and this is Candice Lill and Adelaide Morat making their way through that turn with the puddle we saw earlier when we spoke about Fumic trying to move himself up to track the Scott riders. This is where they started to make their attack and their ride towards victory. So this is the start of that really tough climb for these two riders as well. And we saw just before Crossbow getting towards the top of the climb. So that's what separates those two teams in second and third. The Summit Fin team, they're riding around 6.5 minutes behind Crossbow.
They know these trails well because they won the Wines to Wales race, which takes place over so many of these trails over 3 days in November. So Candice and Adelaide familiar, but in a different direction. The race would go, ends in Hermanus, in fact, and this Oak Valley base is the race base for the two nights, the stopover nights. So they know it well, but a slightly different direction. I'll enjoy tomorrow as they do a loop around the beautiful Oak Valley and Elgin Valley area. Power on the front out of the saddle. They're not wasting any moment. They want to get every second they can out of this stage.
Well, it's time in the bank, money in the bank. You save up, and at the end of the day, they've got an extra minute. Just gives them a buffer if things do go wrong, if they have any mishaps or any issues with their tires. They've just got a little bit of an insurance policy. They know they're the strongest out there, what for what, and they can just gain time every single day, just a few minutes. It'll stand them in good stead. Give them a bit of a luxury at the end of the week. Perhaps they can take the last stage a little bit easier and really savor their victory.
But they also know they don't need to push ridiculously hard, take big risks to try and get too much time, because when you start taking those risks, it's when you start having crashes and equipment failures. And maybe there was a moment yesterday that was a little warning sign for Anna van der Breggen. She had a little crash on a gravel section. She got to the finish and just had a little bit of blood trickling down her shin. So she wants to certainly avoid that over the next few days. So just ride a good, strong tempo, just get a bit of a time gap, but obviously not take too many risks and risk losing it all.
Now, an update on our Investing Songo Specialised men's team as we have a look at Summit Fin here, just to let you know that Yaroslav Kulhavi and Sam Gaze lost 28 minutes today. They've just rolled over the line here, and Yaro's quote was, "We lost the race today, but we will now have to see if Sam can race tomorrow and take it from here." So clearly Sam Gaze had a problem today.
Yeah, tragic for this. We really had high hopes for that pairing. We've talked about their firepower. That really very few teams could match that once the two of them would hit their stride on the open roads, and they just not had the opportunity to really show their talents. Sam Gaze had that crash, and crashes are really a random thing. Sometimes you can get up perfectly healthy, and other times it's far-reaching consequences.
Well, I think that would be the straw that broke the camel's back with Sam Gaze. They were off the pace in the prologue and lost 1:50. And then on stage one, they were with the group of favourites until Sam Gaze took that heavy fall, and I think that's really taken a toll on him. And it's often the day after a fall that you feel the worst. Everything is out of position, your body's incredibly stiff, and just does not want to perform the way you'd like it to. And they've lost almost half an hour again today. And so Yaroslav Kulhavi rightly saying, we've completely lost the race now, and it's just a matter of seeing if Sam can actually stay in. And it's almost a little bit of a mirror image of what Nino experienced last year. His partner fell sick and was out of the race, and due to one thing and another, this time a crash for Sam Gaze could be the same thing for the Investec Songo Specialised team.
Just goes to show how highly tuned and finely tuned the athletes are. We saw Sam Gaze in the paddocks yesterday, and he looked fine. He looked like there was nothing wrong. But when you're putting out maximum watts every day, all day, it does take its toll. If something's just not quite right, a couple of degrees out, spine needs alignment or something like that, can play a big role in your performance.
Now, for those guys, 28 minutes behind is an absolute disaster. It's race over, and it's all been lost. Although you know how many hundreds of teams that would immediately sign up for a 28-minute deficit on the winners on the day.
Yeah.
But that's what makes an elite athlete, and 28 minutes certainly is game over.
Well, this is the fourth team on the overall, and the fourth team on the standings, I think, today as well. Jenny Stenahach behind Mariska Strauss there, and Jenny really digging deep to try and keep the wheel of Mariska.
They're really doing it tough, bobbing up and down, just trying to keep that weight balance between front and back, and trying to find that balance between traction for the back tyre and not letting the front wheel come up off the surface of the track. It is really that looking back and just checking on her and just checking her speed.
Silverback Fair Tree pair, Jenny a former winner, and Mariska's finished twice, finished second with Annie last before, but a win this year is going to have to be put on the back burner.
It looks unlikely with passing that water point 4 that was that we saw Silverback Fair Tree, almost a 10-minute deficit on the day to Investec Songo Specialized. The best they can hope for is a spot on the podium, but they've still got quite a bit of time to make up on Team Summit Finn, just for that third spot.
And here's our leaders into the final part of single track.
Yeah, and we've got Stefan Sam sitting on the back of these two riders, the Investec Songo Specialized pair.
And that's
Annika
Annika
flying away, isn't she?
Yeah, Annika leading Anna, and Anna just a little bit tentative as she hits the single track trails.
Yeah, this is not second nature to her, albeit that she's one of the finest riders on the planet and a great bike handler. This is just slightly different and takes a lot of focus, concentration and regular riding. Well, that's Mariska giving a hand to Jenny up this brutal climb.
Stenahag is on the left. She's the former Swedish road champion. She'll be hanging onto the pocket of Mariska, knowing that her young South African partner is just a little bit stronger, and it just helps ease the load a bit. Just a couple of watts off the power, and she can then stay in contention, and they can share the load, share the efforts.
Here we go. This is Langval and Van der Breggen over the bridge into that forested trail. And we sat on the wheel of the leaders there. It was sensational stuff. I wonder if we'll be able to keep an eye on these leaders as they make their way right down to the finish here.
They'll have the comfort of knowing that they've got that buffer, and they can just roll into the finish. No risks on the single track. No need to push the pace. They've got all they need in hand. No stress for them.
Great position to be in for Investec Songo Specialized. They've done the hard work over the preparation phase, and it's all coming to fruition here. It's working out so far, so good.
Very useful to have this position, this luxurious position, being able to ride out front. And we spoke about the marginal gains earlier, and it does compound. Just a day of no stress, another day of no stress, when the other team is just a little bit on the back foot, a little bit on the limit, does add up. And by day 8, they're certainly going to feel a little bit of an easier time they're going to have over their rivals.
Absolutely, just chipping away. Yep.
Credit to Crossbow, they've definitely held their own and keeping a steady pace.
That's the mixed leaders there. I think Sebastian and Laura Stark, husband and wife pair, may well be the riders they've just passed there in the Virgin Active mixed category, the green jerseys. Into the forest they go, so they are close to home, and it'll be Langfellow perhaps know these trails reasonably, having ridden the Absa Cape Epic over the last 4 years, but all new territory for Van der Breggen. Beautiful trails, old oak trees planted here over a century ago by the original owner of Oak Valley, Anthony Viljoen. He was in fact kept in house arrest during the Boer War here in South Africa. He'd sided with the Boers, and the British forces put him under house arrest and said the only way you can stay in house arrest is if you pay for the guards to look after you. So he stayed here under the British guard, but he paid for them.
Certainly a scenic place to be told where to stay.
Yes.
That's getting off lightly, isn't it?
Here we go.
That's why he planted all those vines.
Yep. Crossbow. Yeah, he brought deciduous fruit to this part of the world. As now they're powering. They're not that far off the pace, which is good to see for them. Yesterday they were just over 3 minutes back. Today they may be a little bit closer. Orstovska on the front. Yeah, little holes there, just a little switch through the hole. One eye on the trail up ahead and you miss that hole, can end a race.
It's all about being able to adapt to the unpredictable conditions. You riding it blind, we've spoken about it earlier, and it's about just being able to manage that and to immediately move on to the next thing, because you're always on the lookout for what could possibly be your undoing.
Well, this cross-spur pairing, they know this is the moment they can take some time back on the leaders. They know Anna van der Breggen is a little bit vulnerable on the technical downhill trails, so if they really push themselves in the chase, they can take a few seconds back.
We've seen in the past 2 days the tiniest chink of the Investex Songo Specialized Armor is the technical section, and Crossbow team will just try and take back whatever second they can, even if it is 1 second, they'll take it.
Well, we'll also stay tuned after the finish and see if there's any consequences for that cutting off of those switchback turns earlier in the race that was caught on camera by our following e-bike with the camera mounted on board.
Yeah, a little bit earlier they did. They went straight through a couple of switchbacks on a descent. Out of the trail, they'll come over this little single track, pop over the shoulder and into the finish compound here at the Oak Valley Estate. Stage 2 of the Absa Cape Epic is coming to a conclusion for Investex Songo Specialized Women's Team of Anneke Langveld and Anna van der Breggen.
A little bit of a drop off onto this bridge, and then they'll know it's onto the grass, and as soon as they hit the grass they'll know it's time to lift off the power a bit, take that right hander and just savor that win.
There they are, Anneke Langveld on the left and Anna van der Breggen. Another supremely confident and composed ride, and they've taken another stage win and another step towards Val de Vie and the grand finale in those orange jerseys. A fantastic performance once again, quite a brilliant ride. Kept their powder dry, bided their time, and then attacked when necessary and when they felt they were ready, and put time into Crossbow, who not far behind them at the moment. Candice Venter just having a chat with Anneke now. She looks after the specialized pro team, as we are now with Maja Wojtowska and Ariane Luthi of Crossbow. Beautiful flowing trails through the oak trees, and they will pop out shortly.
Earlier when we were watching the Nino Schurter and Lars Foster going through this section, we had the e-bike, the onboard camera with the e-bike, and really exciting to see how fast they were going.
Little air there from Maya. She's loving these trails. Her noses are down there, really hammering it towards the finish. They're just a couple of 100 meters away from popping out of the forest and over the dirt road and into the finish.
Well, these beautiful single tracks here in Oak Valley, a bit of reward for all the suffering you've done through the hot and dusty, rocky and sandy stage so far. You get these groomed single tracks. Have a bit of fun on the run into the finish.
It is definitely the holy grail of mountain biking, being able to ride these flowy trails, just highly engaging and fun. It just takes your mind a little bit off that pain of having ridden 90 kilometers.
So Wojtowska and Ariane Luthi will turn left onto the bridge very shortly and roll onto the lush grass of the rugby field here at Oak Valley to complete another very good day for the Crossbow team. They've kept themselves within reach, although it's a long stretch. It is Maja Wojtowska and Ariane Luthi of Crossbow who take second on stage 2 here at Oak Valley at the Absa Cape Epic in 2019. A smile from each of them, and they'll be pleased with the job done today, that's for sure. So let's go down to the winners' enclosure, and Laura is down there to speak to the leading two teams.
Deja vu from these first two stages. We have the same team winning for the third time in a row, Annika and Anna. So congratulations once again. Today was a tough day, as we can see, but how was it for you?
Yesterday we were quite broken when we crossed the finish line, so today we actually tried to save energy as much as we could. It was still bloody hot, so we just tried to hang on to the girls. And then up the last climb, we could feel that they were fading, so we pushed the pace a little bit and got a gap.
That climb seems to be the decisive point today in the stage?
Yeah, because it's at the end of the stage, and you need to time it well to have still something left in the tank for that climb. We knew that, so we tried to pace it like that.
And for you today was a very technical terrain, and also very hard for a road cyclist like you. How was it?
Yeah, indeed. I'm really happy with today's stage because of that. Because we stayed with Maya and Ariane also in the downhills in the technical section, and we managed to keep up without crashing. And it's really easy today to crash if you go too fast. So yeah, that already makes it a really good day for me. And yeah, in the end we take the win, so that's also really nice.
It's so different from road cycling. How important here is to rest and recover after a stage?
Well, for sure it's longer. It's longer and harder because you go hard all the time. So it's even more important to recover well and to take enough food and to eat and drink on the bike, which is not easy in a race like this. So yeah, all those things are quite hard to do.
Thank you, girls. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move to the second team here at the finish line. It was like yesterday. Again, they are second. So they must be very happy. Hello, Ariane. So today you were second. Also your teammates were second today at the stage. So that must be... Yes, yes. So, yeah, so it must be a good...
Yesterday, thanks. You did.
So it's a good day today for the team, right?
Yeah, super. I'm so glad they did well today. It was such a shame for them. They were really in great shape. But yeah, anyway, we had a very solid race. I must say, I'm starting to feel a bit more in my elements. Once the cross-country riders got the punch a little bit out the way, it's just a different feeling, and I'm a little bit more used to being a constant, steady snail, and they're super fast, always punching. But yeah, I'm super happy with how we work together. It's super, super good. She's so fast on the trails and really solid with the lines. So it's amazing to ride with her.
And how was it for you today? We were saying that also the men's team were second today. So you have a lot to celebrate today, maybe.
Maybe let's wait until next Sunday. But yeah, I'm super happy about the guys. Like yesterday, we felt so sorry for them. Like they have legs to make something in this race, and yesterday they lost GC chances. So yeah, it's great to see them on the stage podium. And yeah, for us, it was really, really good day. I felt a little bit worse than yesterday, I have to say. I was struggling today. But Ariana had a better day, so she did a lot of work on the flat, and I also like to follow her on the single trail. So yeah, we are happy.
What do you think about tomorrow? You need to catch these ladies that are winning every single day.
Easy. We still have 5 days, right? So, but let's don't talk about tomorrow. I'm just thinking about laying down in bed today and having some rest. Ariana is getting better and better with every stage, and she has experience, so our time will come.
Thank you. Good luck, and thank you. So, we are still waiting for the third team to arrive here, so let's go back to the studio.
Thanks very much to Laura and the views there of the top two teams. Interesting from Maja Rostovska that she really did suffer today. That is Sabine Spitz and Nadine Reeder, who are in pursuit of Jenny Stenehag and her partner Mariska Strauss, who are in fourth. So this is fourth and fifth. Third team is Candice Lill and her partner Adelaide Morath, who are a little bit up the trail. We saw them go through here a short while ago. Good race here.
We've been watching them at the time checks, Mirandal Viervis, Rockbilt and Silverback Fairtree, and they've been pretty well evenly matched. Overall, they're lying fourth and fifth, and also on the stage.
As we heard from Anna van der Breggen, these days are much longer than she's used to, so and perhaps more physically demanding in terms of the overall body workout you get on these trails. So recovery is absolutely vital. Today, 3 hours 37 for the leading men, 4.5 there and thereabouts for the women, and they're in before midday. But all about getting that recovery going this afternoon.
Well, definitely it is more fatiguing riding the mountain bike. You ride a long road stage, it's obviously your legs, but also your back, and maybe your neck is a bit stiff. From a mountain bike event like this, you are stiff in every single part of your body, right down to the tips of your fingers and tips of your toes, and even the hair on your head. It is really demanding. It was interesting to hear Annika Langwald say, we were really busted yesterday, but I think she was using the royal we, meaning her herself, because Anna was really quite good after yesterday, and I think that's why they took it a little bit easier today. Still winning, still opening up a gap, but not quite riding with the intent and intensity that they did yesterday, trying to let Annika just recover somewhat from yesterday's efforts. It looks like we're setting up for a little sprint finish between these two teams here. But we did see in the men's, it was very difficult to get up and try and make a pass. We had Cannondale behind Cross, and Cross just able to hold them behind them on the single track in a very short run to the finish line from the last corner. And there is our race village.
Beautiful layout, isn't it, here at Oak Valley? The village just around the corner here for Candice Lill and Adelaide de Morat of Team Summit Finn, as they will roll down this little single track and head to the bridge and to the finish. Third again for this pair. They're having a very consistent week. They're riding a sensible race.
They're riding very sensibly, and it's not always easy to ride on your own. You've got to keep pacing yourself. You don't have any other of your rivals to measure yourself against. They've been alone for a while. Crossbow and Vestec Songa Specialized were way up the road.
In the background, Alessandro Petacchi and Francesco Chicchi just crossing the line as well. Just riding past the camera now, the Italian former road professionals.
Have done another good day on the bike. They have.
They've obviously stayed in good shape over the years.
They stay in good shape, and those guys, we talked about Anna van der Breggen, sometimes being a little bit out of her element, but she's done plenty of off-road racing before. Petacchi and Chicchi only got their mountain bikes a couple of weeks ago and have done a little bit of mountain biking on the trails around near where they live in Italy. So to being out of their element, they are absolutely fish out of water and loving it, but really hurting.
Right, let's go and find out the news from Candice Lill and Adelaide Morat, the third place finishers for Team Summit Finn.
Third team here at the finish line. They have not recovered yet, but we would love to hear from you. Hi, how was it today?
It was quite hard today. At the first we looked that we paced a lot, but we missed the train from the first two teams, and then we have worked together. So Candice really helped me out today in the flat parts, so I'm really lucky about that. So we have a good race today, so we are on the podium, so it was quite high. Tired.
And Candice, which were the most difficult parts of today's stage?
The most difficult part was probably the middle part, going through Wildekrans. Start getting really tired, and there's a lot of pedaling single track, and you really got to concentrate around some loose corners. So I'd say that was the hardest part, and then of course to the line is always difficult.
What do you think about tomorrow's stage? No rest here at Cape Epic.
Yeah, no, there's never an easy day here. I think tomorrow's going to be a monster day with the Grunenberg and a lot of other climbing in it. So just get your head mentally in it that you're going to suffer for the rest of the epic, and that's the only way to get through.
Thank you, girls. A good job today. Thank you. So we are going back to the studio now. See you in a few minutes.
Thanks very much, Lara. Getting the views of our third place team there, Candice Lill and Adelaide Morat. Tomorrow is a monster day, 107 Ks, 2,800 meters of climbing.
A great view of the race village here. We've got a totally self-supported race village. This is for the riders. It's a little bit empty now. There's a lot of riders still to come. We've only seen the very best riders in the world coming in so far, so we'll no doubt see the race village filling up. 4,500 strong caravan follows the race, including riders, the crew, the sponsors, the support crew, and truly a logistical a feat to get all of this together, and also to put it all back and then open it all up again at the next venue.
Yeah, I mean, if you think that they've left a village that looks pretty much exactly like this in Hermanus, and in a few days' time in Stellenbosch, there'll be another one. It is an amazing logistical effort from the whole crew at the Absa Cape Epic, and believe it, in those early years it was a point to point, so every day they had to move the race as it made its way from Neisner to Stellenbosch. That changed, but it perhaps is a little bit easier, but certainly the infrastructure's got a lot bigger, the race has got a lot bigger, so it's actually no less difficult, no less of a task.
It's no longer a race village, it's a race
town. Yeah. It is.
In the background you can see some of the camper vans there. There's some of the riders and the tented village here. Many of the riders are up to stay in the tents. Get really a much better sense of the vibe. If you're staying on site, you can have your dinner and socialize after the race.
Does that mean you're staying in a tent, Neil?
No comment on that.
But it's interesting.
I thought I saw your bags at the B&B last night. That's all I'm saying.
But it's interesting. There are a lot of riders that are putting the mattresses into the tents there. There are certain core riders who believe that if you haven't done the Absa Cape Epic by staying in the tents all the way through, then you haven't really done the Absa Cape Epic. We all know that's just a thumbsucker justifying why they prefer to stay in the tents and not go and shell out for a
they just
nice
didn't want to pay the
shower.
extra money.
Exactly. But they do. They're hardcore, and there is a category of rider. In fact, there's a prize for the riders who do the fastest riders who do stay in the tents.
Well, and I get the impression though over the years it's gone from camping to glamping. I mean, the tents really are good. They get mattresses, and you have a shower facility, the dining tent, and the way the riders are looked after with everything around the race. It's not roughing it maybe like it was a few years ago. It really is fantastic facilities they've got access to.
A short while ago we caught a glimpse of a team coming across there in the gold and the blue. Sean Oosthuizen and Presma Musundi. Presma Musundi has only been riding a mountain bike for 18 months. He dabbled into some road riding, and then was gifted a mountain bike and has absolutely loved it. And he in fact finished third in his first ever stage race, which was a month ago, and he's come in to ride the Absa Cape Epic and is finishing handily very nicely here today. He's from Zimbabwe and just 24 years old, and he's absolutely loving it.
Well, speaking of that type of situation, people performing maybe above expectations without really a mountain bike background. We spoke about him briefly yesterday. Alex Espargo, the MotoGP rider, along with his partner Ibon Zugasti, finished at 27.5 minutes behind the elite men's winners, Schurter and Fuster, and they finished right ahead of Kulhavi and Gaze. That is an incredible performance from the MotoGP rider. Mid-season, he's still an active professional in his own sport. So that's just
screenshot
incredible.
Of that result. He'll take that around the world.
Absolutely.
Sell that off. I beat the world champion. Let's go down to Lara in the finisher circle.
Hi girls, do you mind if I join you here? How are you? How are you after the stage today? We see you are cooling down with some ice here.
Yes, always handy. Get the core temperature down, start recovery. Tomorrow's another day. I felt better today. Jenny took some shots today, but we're taking turns. It's good teamwork, I think, rather that than both of us on the same day. So I think we both had a turn, so now the rest of the epic will be good.
At least the moral is high, as you can see.
Definitely. We still enjoy it in some weird way. Yeah.
How are you feeling after yesterday's crash? Was it okay today?
Yeah, it was okay. I think it might have taken some energy out of me though, but no, it was fine. Yeah, better than I expected.
Thank you very much. Good luck tomorrow also. Thank you. Well, let's go back to the studio now.
Thanks, Laura. Ever smiling Mariska Strauss and Jenny Stenhaag keeping the bright side shining there. She did have it off yesterday. The former Swedish champion, a former winner here, of course, as well. And she is in the fourth place at the moment in the race.
Oh, interesting to hear Jenny say after that crash, and how it was today, and said she felt like it took some energy out of her. She had a bad day today. Mariska said, yes, Jenny certainly took some shots today and didn't have a good one. And that's something we were talking about earlier, the performance of Kulhavi and Sam Gaze. And I'm sure Sam Gaze was also really feeling the effects of his big crash yesterday. And it is so often that it's the day after you have a crash that you feel the worst. Right after the crash, you jump back on, your muscles are still warm, you battle through it. But once you've had a night's rest, everything stiffens up and you really are in a bad way the next day. And we heard that also from Jenny.
So that is what lies ahead on stage 3. It doesn't get any easier. It is, after all, the Absa Cape Epic. And Groenlandberg is tomorrow's major challenge.
That's going to give a few nightmares tonight, that Groenlandberg.
They've been having nightmares for months about that.
1,100 metres above sea level. So on this 107 kilometre stage, not the longest, but so far the most climbing. Yesterday, 2,700 metres. Tomorrow, 2,800. And tomorrow, the Land Rover technical terrain is on an uphill rather than a downhill. So that's also going to be a struggle up the neck. And about halfway through the stage, we're just shy of that. So a really tough one.
It's a highly technical climb. I think that really requires sometimes more skill to go on the uphill on a really technical section than on the downhill. It all requires maximum concentration. When you're going really slow, you have to make sure that your weight distribution on the bike is perfect, not let the front wheel lift up, not lose traction on the back, and require every little iota of skill from each and every rider as they head up the neck.
At least there is some sort of reward after it, a long and steep downhill section where they can at least not have to pedal, although they will not be able to let their guard down and drop concentration. That'll take them through to water point number 2 for the day. But another tough climb after that. Short descent and South Hill will be the last big challenge. But we know from this race there's plenty of little hills that don't quite make it onto the profile.
Absolutely. I mean, tomorrow the Dimension Data hotspot at Nieuweberg, which is inside the first 20 Ks, and that's a tough climb in its own right. And then they go up Groenlandberg. So the first 35 Ks absolutely vital in terms of pacing yourself tomorrow over a big day like 107.
It is, with a really big climb like that. You don't want to overcook it early because it'll make it a very, very long day indeed. And whatever the profile says, you can really read everything by looking at the rating, and you see that 4.5 chainring rating out of 5. This is one of the very toughest stages, if not the toughest stage of this year's Absa Cape Epic.
I think what's critical about a race or a stage like this in particular is you may not see the break go on Groenlandberg or on Nieuweberg even, but what it does is it starts to set the race up. So the protagonists will really try and push the pace as much as they can, and that will force everyone to chase on the descent off Groenlandberg, and then again on the climb on Die Nek and the descent down. At this stage, riders who are behind will have to take a little bit of an extra risk just to catch back on. And that can have devastating effects not only to your mechanic, but not to your equipment, but also to the fact that you may be completely burnt out by the time you hit the really selective sections, and always have to save something in the tank for something hill like South Hill and the Tandy switchbacks. You need to be a bit fresh when you're coming out of there, because if you're up against the world's best, Nino Schurter, Lars Foster, and the Cannondale Factory Racing team, need to be on your game at that point.
I think on your game is more like it than be a bit fresh by the time you get to 85, 90 Ks. But yeah, it's going to take a lot of strategy and a lot of planning and communication with each other all the way through this race. And we saw it today there. I haven't seen you going up, and Manuel Fumic started to suffer, and I haven't seen you think, well, the race is going away from us here. I've got to get back, and came back to nurse Manuel Fumic up that climb.
I think it's one thing when you're being put under pressure by your rivals, but when you're being put under pressure and it's your own teammate who's driving the pace, it's got to feel a whole lot worse.
And we've seen that before. Various riders riding their own partners into the ground, and that can be very dangerous. So that is stage 3's task for these riders. And again, we do focus on the elite races. It's thrilling stuff to watch the very best riders in the world, but it is also about those riders way back down the field today, and spare a thought for them. Some of them yesterday between 8 and 9 and 10 hours. The time allowed yesterday was 10 hours, and a team finished just 6 minutes short of that. There were teams who didn't make it, and so today again the same sort of thing. 8 hours and 15 minutes is the maximum time allowed today for the stage, so they're going to be people under pressure.
People under pressure, and even if you do make it in under the 8.5 hour time, you still have a bit of a job to do to recover. The professionals have a long time to recover. They often have a backup crew of perhaps even 6 or 7 people. And there's a very set routine for a lot of the professionals. You saw Mariska Straus, saw the signs. Mariska Straus already had ice on her. She will no doubt take an ice bath, perhaps even up to the necks. They take an ice bath, helps the body recover, gets the blood flowing, and also helps reduce the inflammation that causes that dead feeling in the muscles. They'll also have to recover from any crashes they've had. They have to tape themselves up, make sure that the wounds are healing nicely. A shot of espresso, another really good recovery thing. That little trick that the guys come up with. They have a shot of espresso and in a protein shake, and perhaps a bit of a warm down like you've seen on the road. The road riders nowadays, when they finish the hill climb stage, they get on the rollers and spin it out for about 10 minutes. And of course a massage and a good meal at the end of it all.
Well, it's very happy between the top teams here. That's Anneke Langwell and former partner Ariane Luthi and Van der Breggen and Maya Wostovska heading out to the presentation of the jerseys. Just wait for the team to roll across the line, who are the Absa Africa women's leaders, Sam Sanders and Amy Beth McDougall of Team Dormakaba. So they've had another seemingly good day for them. I think they will keep those jerseys. Teresa Ralph and Sarah Hill, their major challengers, lost half an hour in the on the first day due to some drafting on the Tafelberg Thar section. They were penalised half an hour, so they've got lots of time to make up. So I think the Dormakaba pair very much secure in those red jerseys for now. So to the presentation of the women's elite category here at stage 2 of the Absa Cape Epic. Top 3 in the women's category. It has a familiar look to it once again. Ariane and Maya, Annika and Anna, and Candice and Adelaide.
At the end of stage 2, claiming 3rd position today, Team Sutherland, Candice Little and Adelaide Morat.
So Candice Little and Adelaide Morat step up to claim 3rd once again.
Both two-time finishers of this race. They'll be going for their Amababesi status, having finished 3 Amababesi members. All have 3 finishes to their name. That's the big mark of pride, having finished 3 editions of the Absa Cape Epic.
Well, they finished some 9 minutes behind the stage winners, while Ariane Luthi and Maya Wostovska, they were just over 2 minutes behind. So they did well to manage that gap, and they are keeping themselves, well, within a mechanical or 2 of the orange jersey, and that's perhaps all that stands between them and this pair.
And that's why you've got to never give up. You've got to keep chasing every single day, because they're not only racing the guys up front, they're racing the guys behind too, and they also could have a mechanical.
Well, seeing as though the prizes are being awarded at the moment, maybe nothing has been decided over that little cutting off of those switchbacks earlier today, or that might be something reviewed later on and amended. We'll just wait and see what the commissaires think of that and what the exact regulation is, whether you have to just ride to certain points and however you get there is up to you, or little switchbacks like that, they'll just, as they say, see that through the fingers. But we did see on the prologue for drafting, there was a team given a 30-minute penalty for doing something that maybe won them about 20 or 30 seconds. So can you imagine if those top two teams got a half-hour penalty for cutting through those switchbacks? I mean, it would really bring the women's race to life, because effectively it would put 3rd place into 1st.
Well, we've seen it happen before. Yep, it's happened before with Ariane Luthi and Anneke Langveld picked up an hour penalty for leaving the course on this very stage into here, and they were an hour back of the rest of the teams and still won the race.
Well, I'm thinking the entire story hasn't yet been written about this stage and about this race.
Yep. So Anneke Langveld and Anna van der Breggen into the orange jerseys once again. They can, if they would have to be either the UCI race commissaire would have had to have seen that and investigated it, or a protest has been lodged by one of the other teams.
And they probably just don't know.
Yep, that's the other thing. So, orange again, and this pair absolutely dominant. Of nearly 9 minutes on Ariane Luthi and Maja Wasztowska. Candice Lill and Adelaide Morat. Well, they're even further back, nearly 19 minutes back. So the lead is becoming very, very secure for the Investec Songo Specialized pair of Langval and Van der Breggen. Celebrations for all these riders as they roll across the line, and why not? Because today's another big, big day, and it's under the belt and done and dusted for them all. Well, these guys anyway, and these girls, there's still a lot more out there making their way to Oak Valley.
Well, we did get that update a little bit earlier from the Hyenas at the back of the race, and they are a long, long way from home at the moment. They'll only be going somewhere around through the 40-kilometre mark at the moment.
I mean, that becomes the day's second latest story, of course, whilst the afternoon all the mid-packers come in, as Amy Beth McDougall recovers after her effort today. The secondary story is, how they're going, and the Hyenas do Rich McMartin and Rob Vogel keep us up to date throughout the afternoon, periodically sending us stories about the progress being made.
Well, we're about 17 minutes from the cut-off time at Waterpoint 2. I'm pretty sure they're already through that, so they're riding just ahead of that cut-off time to make it to the finish, and the maximum stage time today, 8 hours and 15 minutes. Outside of that, you're no longer classified in the Absa Cape Epic, although you may continue to ride.
You get a blue number, and you can ride the next day with your blue number. If you miss the cut that next day, then you'll lose your blue number and no longer have the chance to take part.
So you get one strike?
Yeah. So, and as we said, there were very few withdrawals yesterday for whatever reasons. Those riders withdrew, but only I think 5 of them who didn't start this morning, which is a remarkable testament to the preparation of all these riders getting themselves in condition to ride the Absa Cape Epic.
I think in the information age, intelligence spreads really quickly, and the mistakes made in year 1 get learnt in year 2, and the knowledge and the collective learning just compounds, and the riders are always just a little bit better prepared every single year.
The sprint finish, and guess who's involved? No, I couldn't pick them out, unfortunately.
It's a bunch of mates, quite obviously, because they're both teams hugging it out and high fives all round. So, a little bit of a battle right at the end, and enjoying the finish of the stage here through the single track into the
good fun
Oak Valley estate.
One of the great aspects of the race is that there is a competitiveness at the front with the professionals, and also within the field. A couple of mates will get together and they'll be racing each other, and the riders are often seen staring intently at the results sheet as if they were actually on the top of the board, and they're really racing for 200th place. Shows the spirit of the competitiveness at the Absa Cape Epic.
So 3 days down in the Absa Cape Epic, the prologue, stage 1 down in Hermanus, and now stage 2, the transition day from Hermanus through to the beautiful Oak Valley estate here. And it is still the Scots mountain bike team who have the yellow jerseys so firmly on their shoulders. The rider rolls across the line on his own. He may be one of those alone riders who lost his partner yesterday. And it's all up to the big losers today. Well, the Investec Songo Specialized pair of Kulhavi and Gaze, pre-race favourites, defending champion Jaroslav Kulhavi. Well, his hopes of winning this year are gone in a puff of smoke. 28 minutes they lost today alone, which would put them over half an hour adrift of the leaders, Schurter and Foster. So that's pretty much how it stands. Just to repeat to you, Annika Langval and Anna van der Breggen comfortably leading the women's race ahead of Ariane Luthi, Maja Wasztowska and the Summit Fin team in third. Tomorrow is, we've talked about it, a huge day, but we don't have to move. We're here tomorrow. some effort by anyone catching the Scots Ram team from what we've seen today, Robbie.
Yeah, they've been dominant from the outset. They've won 3 stages in a row. We expect them to go out and do some more damage tomorrow, and had the impression there was a little bit of holding back for a little bit longer in today's stage in anticipation of tomorrow's 4.5 star or chainring rated stage. It's a really tough one, and that Grunanburg, I think, is going to find a few out.
They know it well, though.
They know it well. It's been done many times, and anyone who's ridden the Grunanburg section, it's a really rocky ascent, and the downhills where you've really got to watch out. If you're a little bit on the back foot, if you've got to make up some time on the leaders, it could prove quite crucial if you're not watching. Rocks are really sharp, and you could maybe lose, if you just take it easy, you could lose half a minute. That time is finite, but the amount of time that you lose if you have a puncture is infinite.
Yeah. So, Robbie, that's your task for this afternoon. Please would you just quickly
scout
Grunanburg.
Thanks very much. I'll get back to you.
Don't you dare.
It might be a couple of days.
Yeah. Go and enjoy these beautiful trails here. You'll have a blast. We hope you've enjoyed our coverage of Stage 2 for the Absa Cape Epic in 2019. It's riveting stuff. It's great drama, and it continues to unfold right here at Oak Valley. Join us same time, same place tomorrow morning when we'll bring you Stage 3 live from the Absa Cape Epic. Till then, cheers.